now that those logistics are out of the way, let's talk about our schedules for tonight. With that being said, I am pleased to announce our very special guests for tonight. But before we get started on that, Joel, I did deviate from the plan, sir. I know that you had recommended one bourbon, but I thought since we had 3 people here, we would kind of talk about 2 different bourbons. So what did you bring to the party?
Well, we brought some Michter's 10-year single barrel rye.
Nice. What's that flavor like?
Spicy. Little nutmeg. I don't know. It's good.
It's good. So I brought.
Do not make a Manhattan out of it.
Don't make a Manhattan out of it, right? You drink it straight up, right? I brought Buffalo Trace.
Love it.
This is freshly opened. Like I literally just opened this, literally for this. So, and then Jeff is drinking wine. So gentlemen, before we get into introductions, raise your glasses. Thank you all so very much for joining me on the stream tonight.
Cheers. Thank you.
All right. Awesome. That's good. That's good.
I got my whistle pig in the other room. You just didn't tell me, man.
I told you it was a bourbon tasting night. Gosh, okay. You don't listen. You just don't listen to me. You don't listen.
You don't follow.
By the way, I will say that for all the viewers, when Neil is dissing me, that he actually mutes me. He has this brand new toy with you. It looks great on screen, but it's got this wonderful feature.
You mean like that? Like that?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mute. Tired of Jeff. Mute.
It's all about Neil. Hey, can I just say though, did you practice getting your finger in front of the camera this time?
Because I missed? Is that because I missed before? I practice. I have to practice all the speech in front of the mirror so that I don't mess it up for the viewers. Okay, now, before I get into all of Joel's accolades, you can see that we're doing a new format tonight. We're now doing a 3-way panel. I know people are like, yeah, they're so excited for a great stream. I can't promise a great stream because I've got this guy over here and we got new formats and everything else. So we'll see how this is going to go. But before I get into Joel's accolades, and Lord knows there's enough of these, I'm going to do what we call in the industry. Now, this is very important for those who are asking for mentorship. I'm going to do what we call in the industry a compliment sandwich, right? So this is where this is where I say something nice, followed by some constructive feedback, and then I follow up with another compliment. Are you ready, Joel? Are you ready?
I'm used to the other kind of sandwich, so this will be nice.
Our guest for tonight is Joel Fulton, PhD, man. And he has one of the most impressive backgrounds I've seen. Okay, that was the compliment. Okay,
good.
Ready? You good for that one? Okay, awesome.
That better be a meaty sandwich.
All right, so first off, when we booked you, I asked Carmen, I was like, how the hell did we book Richard Branson? And so I have to ask, were you separated at birth from Richard Branson?
Wait, go back to the other part of the sandwich. What's the part in the middle?
This is
you guys are hairist, aren't you? This is about the hair.
I mean, it's everything. I mean, look at this thing. I mean, this is, you look at this.
You do have a lot of hair. You got a lot of hair.
And this coming from 2 bald guys who literally have none.
I'll tell you all about it on my private jet.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Oh, nice.
Gotcha. Awesome. So with that being said, in all seriousness, right, your background smashes, Joel. You were the global security officer at Symantec. You were the global head of risk at Google. You were the deputy security officer at Symantec. You were the CISO at Splunk, and now you're the CEO of the startup Lucidum, which I have to say, I'm rocking one of your hoodies today. They make one of the most comfortable hoodies in my closet. So listen, if this technology bid that you're working on doesn't pan out, I'm sure the hoodie business will help recoup your investment.
We learned that from Splunk.
That's awesome. Look, I'm excited to have you on the show. Jeff and I, we're glad that you decided to come on and let us have a conversation with you. And so behalf of my audience, behalf of my moderators, everybody watching and putting up with our antics tonight, thank you so very much. Would you like to, say a couple of words to our audience?
You bet. I have enjoyed watching the stream. And there's a couple of things, Neil, you do that encouraged me to join and support you. When you did your intro, I don't know if people know this, but you mean it. And the idea that there is a secret language or a secret knock or a secret handshake to get you into cybersecurity is a false idea. And I started working in wood mills. I drove a forklift. I have a GED. It's not impossible to get into cyber. And people that'll tell you that that ladder is pulled up and there's no room for you, they're the ones perhaps pulling up that ladder. So I'm excited to be here and work with you too.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. I mean, just since you brought it up, it was kind of a little bit later on, but just since we're on kind of the topic for that, you have an amazing story about how you got into cyber. If it's not too personal, would you share with folks kind of your, because you truly have what I believe is almost the equivalent of a rags to riches story in this industry. And when I talk about people, I'm so excited to have you here because of that rags to riches story. So can you share some of that with some folks?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. So I think it's important, and I'll say this a couple times, I'm not special. This isn't about me having some latent superpower that was discovered somewhere in a dusty hovel in the middle of an ancient village. So I wanted to be a firefighter. That was my dream. When I was young, I loved private eye noir fiction novels. So Hammer, I was all in. Mike Hammer, the PI books, that's what I wanted to do. And I was always a planner. So as a kid, 7 or 8 years old, I thought, well, if I'm going to be a PI, they all know cops. I should probably be a cop before I become a PI, because then I got friends on the force. Well, if I'm a cop, this is my 7, 8-year-old thinking, I might have to shoot people. And if I have to shoot somebody, I probably should know how to rescue people. So I should probably be a paramedic first. And then in talking to people, as I did, I learned the best way to become a paramedic was first be a firefighter. So 10 years old, I had firefighter, paramedic, cop, retire, and then open my own beat up office with a bottle of gin in the left-hand drawer and a smoky fan blow. But you know the whole stuff. Right?
You were going all Humphrey Bogart on this one, weren't you?
The whole way, man. The whole way. Yeah. I mean, this was in the late 70s, early 80s, and fedoras were at their nadir. You couldn't find them. But if you had, I would have, yeah. So I had this plan and worked in a wood mill. I had a different background than most people. I grew up in foster homes and group homes and orphanages, homeless. And so I didn't finish high school. I got a job working in a wood mill and used that to earn my GED while I was taking the firefighter test. And I was number 11, and they hired 10, and the wood mill shut down. And so they did, through the unemployment department, they did this worker retraining program, and they made you take these tests, aptitude tests, right? Your Myers-Briggs, your aptitude, that sort of thing. So I'm a guy that had gone to work every day wearing overalls and come home with splinters in my hands. And my routine when I came home was take 2 casserole dishes and fill them with about a half an inch of rubbing alcohol and just soak my hands in them for about a half hour watching TV because it drew the splinters out. Wow. So that's the kind of guy that I was, right? And I wasn't feeling sorry for myself. It's just what you did. You felt sorry for yourself on the nights the shift ran hemlock because hemlock sucks. But so I took these tests and they said, you'd be great at computers. And I thought, there's just no way. There's really, I'm going to be the guy in mom's basement with the bare bulb burning overhead and the pile of Twinkie wrappers. Mom, I'm trying to work here. Keep the noise. Like, that is not what I want to do. Then they turned the sheet over and they said, here's the salary potential. And I thought, yeah, I could learn to love Twinkies. So that was the flip. So I had 9 months of Novell courses. And the thing that I learned is ask a lot of questions. You make an appropriate but a big deal about mentoring. I went and interviewed all kinds of folks, senior engineers, net admin, CIOs. There weren't really CISOs at the time. Yeah. And asked them, what would you have done differently? How would you have started? What do you wish you knew? If you were going to hire me, what would you expect I have? I had a list of questions that I would interview these folks. And so I learned the one thing to be careful of. Back then, they called it a paper tiger. You don't want to be a paper CNE. That was the certified Novell engineer. So I started a consulting company on the side, and I did network installs for carpet cleaners and pest control companies and dentist offices and, lots of little,
yeah.
you got it.
Yeah.
and earned my tech chops. Always in the back of my head, when do I get to wear the fedora, smoke unfiltered Camels, and have that office, right? So security wasn't really a thing. We had WatchGuard firewalls, Sonic Wall. I learned recently WatchGuard's still a thing. And that was my intro into security. And then, thank God for Graham Leach Bliley, the GLB Act, and then Sarbanes-Oxley.
Yeah.
And then it was a thing, and man, I was ready for it. So that is an overly long monologue of how I got into this.
That's okay. I want to piggyback on something you picked up on, and I had it a little bit later in the segment, but I think this is a good transition into it. Right? Is that's an awesome story. That's a kick-ass story, no doubt. But then you went on to get your PhD. And so what was kind of the rationale for that? And I think I'm going to have a follow-up question about, like, how do you think that PhD is going to play in the cybersecurity space moving forward?
Yeah, good question. So the question you didn't ask, I'll also answer. It's less interesting, but hey, when did you get your bachelor's degree?
Okay, when did you get your bachelor's degree?
When I was 35. So I had probably 50 certifications. Now, I'm good at taking tests, and certifications, as probably most folks know, are trivia questions. Most of them, right?
Yeah.
A couple aren't. A couple have a practical aspect to it, but most tend to be trivia questions. I'm a good memorizer. So I had probably 50 certifications and felt insecure, a little ashamed. And as I wanted to move up the ranks, I thought, man, I need something. I need a piece of paper. So I did my bachelor's, and then when I worked at Boeing, they offered to cover my master's. So I earned my master's while working at Boeing. I was ready to leave the security company that I was at. I was leading an area of security there, and I gave notice, and they said, what would it take to make you stay? And honestly, Neil, it was a whim. I'd always fantasized it'd be cool to be Dr. Joel. And I mean, come on, right?
We all call ourselves doctor anyway, but you actually can back it up. That's impressive.
But when you can make your wife call you doctor.
Oh,
okay, you got us there.
That's dangerous ground. Like you two over there, like, oh yeah, my wife's gonna call me doctor. I'm over here like, no, that's not happening in this house.
That ain't gonna happen. Yeah.
That ain't gonna happen.
Even if I had a doctorate, I don't think she'd call me doctor.
Well, what's
like, doctor, get your ass back in the office.
Yeah, pretty much.
The sweet little inside there is that my wife's a nurse. That plays nicely.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So they said, what would make you stay? And I said, pay for my PhD. And they said, give me 5 seconds. And they came back and said, yep. And I thought, well, awesome. This sounds great, right? So I go from this insecure, I can do the stuff, I can do the work, but if somebody looks real close at me, they're going to say, this guy just got a GED, to now maybe I can get a PhD. And so then my brain started cranking in the imagination. I'm going to look for somebody who will be my co-founder in this PhD program, because it is where it happens. I mean, you read about it, right? Everybody drops out of their PhD program to start a company, and that's what I'm going to do. The PhD program was nothing like that. Nothing at all. Nothing. I didn't learn anything about security in the PhD program. And I'm not slamming it. I learned things that I didn't know I needed to learn. I learned about multivariate analysis, machine learning. I learned about authoritative sources and how to write well. And honestly, I learned grit, determination. People that make their way through the PhD, it's not because they're brilliant. They didn't quit. So those are some lessons that I didn't know I needed to learn, and they were taught to me through that.
Do you, when you look back on that, I mean, again, cool stories, and that's one of the things that I wanted you to share with our audience here, with your history and your background. You've got people in chat right now. There's hundreds of people in chat right now who are contemplating where to go with their career. When you look back, how do you advise somebody to say, what's the value of that PhD? I mean, you did it because you were like, hey, what would keep you to stay? And you're like, PhD. And they were like, cool, we can make that happen. But if somebody's looking at a career path, what's the weight of, going from bachelor's to master's to PhD? And how do you have that conversation with yourself?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I did that PhD for me. I'm the only one in my family to have a PhD. I was the first one in my family to have a master's. So it was very personal, and I was insecure. And so it was a good objective to seem to check that box for me. So I go to interview for a job after I have my my PhD. And they look at my resume and they go, you got a PhD, huh? And I was like, yeah, I got my PhD. And they say, how do we know you're not going to be too academic? Can you actually do the work? And I thought, really? Come on. After all this.
This was not what was supposed to happen.
Right. So if you're thinking about getting the PhD, my suggestion would be, if you're into academia, well, of course, right? Of course, do that. And that's a great field to pursue and get into. Otherwise, I would encourage you to do it for you. And then be ready when people say, oh, you're a PhD. Yeah, we don't need somebody else that doesn't work.
So that's awesome. I like that. I want to rewind though a little bit, because you talked about being insecure. And for those who are listening right now, if you hit ! Imposter in chat, you'll get a link to my imposter syndrome video, which I'd encourage everybody to watch if they haven't already seen it. It sounds like you dealt with that imposter syndrome, as we call it, throughout your cybersecurity career.
Yeah, we're not very nice to each other in tech. You know?
Hold on. I think my earbud cut out on me on that. Did you talk about kicking ladders out? What did you say?
Yeah, we're not very nice to each other. There's a lot of tell me what you know before I'm going to show you what I know. Because if I know something that you didn't say, then I get points on the cribbage board. And it's worse in Silicon Valley, because you add to it the fact in the Valley we treat people like they're commodities. I can replace you with a very small script is in the back of everybody's mind. And so you combine those two things, we treat people poorly and we treat them poorly quickly. And of course you're going to have people that are looking at themselves wondering, am I good enough? Because everyone is telling you through their actions, you're not. So
what for you, obviously getting your master's and your PhD was personal. It helped you somewhat with your insecurity, but that's only one piece of it. Kind of what was your mentality? How did you contend with that on a day in and day out? Because I imagine, we just read off like the big titles that you had there. What was your first CISO role? Like, how insecure were you then? And how did you kind of overcome that imposter syndrome and say something like your first CISO role?
Yeah. So, two things. And I still tried to do this. One is, and I know I'm not demonstrating this very well right now. One is, be the person in the room that talks the least. And two, ask really good questions. Get to know people. We used to play this game, and occasionally we still will. And when we play the game, the objective of the game is to make sure nobody knows you're playing the game. The game is, how long can you go only asking questions before somebody pops to it? And I have suggested to some of my directs who, hey, head of engineering really doesn't like me. I don't want to go meet with her. This is going to be bad. My suggestion is, when you go, only ask questions. Make no statements. And when that's your goal, you really, really have to work at it, because you can't play the fake Socratic questions. You've got to ask them, what are their interests? And then when you start to know people, what you realize is, holy smokes, everybody's broken. and instead
everybody has the imposter syndrome. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, everybody has a crack, right? There's something inside of everybody that has hurt them. And that's the thing they hide. And when you hide something, you feel like an imposter, because you're showing everything except the bit you're hiding. And as soon as I started to realize that, I completely lost any sense of the imposter syndrome. Because I realized it wasn't about whether I get credit. Sorry, Jeff.
Oh, no, I was just going to ask, you talked a little bit about mentorship early on, and it's a little bit of a recurring theme on our show here. But, were your mentors giving you some of that guidance of how to overcome some of those insecurities? Were you asking them? Were you open with them?
So it depends on the mentor. I've got a really rigorous approach to mentorship. So, Jeff, if I were going to come and ask you to be my mentor, I would have a couple of things already laid out, and I'd have them in writing. These are the things, Jeff, that I see are in your toolbox that you're good at, that I want to be good at. In exchange for you taking time, here's what I'm going to do for you. You're going to get something out of this mentorship. So if it's a project you're working on, if it's something, you're going to get something out of this, so that you get to watch me be accountable in this relationship. And in exchange, now you got skin in the game. And so it's not a matter of Jeff's going to tell me cool stories. It's not a therapy session. It is a practical, tangible working session where expressly there's a couple things I want to work on. Number one, I don't understand DevSecOps as it's applied in our company right now. Number two, our procurement process confuses me. Number three, I don't think the CFO likes me. I think you're good at two of those. Will you show me how to be good at two of those? And then that requires work from that mentor, because you might say, all right, yeah, I'm good with the CFO. Now let me put you, Joel, in front of her so that you can pitch next week's budget plan, and I'm going to coach you on how to do it, and you can see whether you can crack that skill for yourself.
And then you go back and say, no, I don't think you're good with the CFO. That wasn't one of the ones I was going to come to you for.
I think what you're describing, though, very much is you've got multiple mentors based on where it is that you need to grow and the humps that you kind of need to address in your career path.
That's right. I don't want to be like any person that I've met. But every person that I've met has tools in their box I don't, or they can use tools I've got in a way I can't. That's what I'm after.
So how much self-assessment were you going through as you were looking at mentors, as you were determining, okay, I think my greatest weakness is my insecurity. What do I think I need to solve? Beyond that, how much of that introspection were you doing, and how much of that was being an open book to your mentor or to other people and saying, hey, tell me what you think are my greatest limitations so that I can, go actively figure out a way to solve them?
Yeah, that's a good question. Nobody has the ability to know me as well as I ought to. And so when I ask people what are my greatest limitations, I try to get 3 or 4 of them, because everybody's got an agenda and everybody looks at me through their eyes. And everybody thinks, oh, well, Joel's really great at this or that. And I think, man, I'm faking it, right? Because I don't understand how this thing works. And I need you to actually help me here. So honestly, most of my mentors have been dead for 100 years. And one of the things that I love about history is if you go back, there are things that today I suck at that 200 years ago, someone else sucked at. And you can watch them go through and grow. And then now I've got something to go to Neil and say, all right, Neil, here's what I've been working on. Here's how I've tried it. And very often I've got ideas that Neil hasn't thought of, that then he wraps his ideas around. And now I got something to work with.
So it's almost a collaborative approach to mentoring, right? Yeah. And because we talked about, so Jeff and I did a kind of a 30-45 minute segment on mentoring last week.
Yeah, I heard it. Yeah.
Okay, and one of the themes that we brought up was this idea of creating a relationship between a mentor and a mentee, and that's what you're kind of elaborating on. Is it's not just like, hey, mentor me, and then I take everything that's in my head and dump it out. It's about establishing a bi-directional relationship where you've got goals and expectations.
Absolutely, that's right.
So got a comment coming in from chat. Looks like it's coming from Octavia3. Says, this man is a fountain of wisdom. It's the hair, okay? Don't let the hair fool you.
He's a fountain of something.
Thank you for the compliment. Look, our guest is being rude. He won't even thank you for the compliment. Thank you for the compliment. Keep them coming. The greatest moment in CyberSec was meeting the legend Jason East Street. Asked him what codes I should learn. He let me know. I don't know any codes. I just know that the tools I need and how to use them. Absolute legend. Some Twitch thought. When it comes to mentorship, where does it make sense for you to look for your mentors? And again, this is kind of a lead-in question to kind of some of the stuff that Jeff and I talked about last week. Is, do you look for mentors or mentees inside your company? Do you look for them inside your industry? Do you look for them inside your neighborhood? Do you look for them inside, maybe your discipline or outside your discipline? Like, should you have this like almost catalog of like, I know a guy over in finance who does accounting, and if I need a question, I'm gonna go get a mentorship from him, sort of thing. So
let me call back to something that you guys talked about last week. How do you begin a career in cybersecurity? One of those 3 items is networking. Mm-hmm. How do you get a good mentor? One of the 3 items in that list is networking. Mm-hmm. That networking is simply make a lot of friends. And that's very hard for me because I'm an introvert. It exhausts me to spend a lot of time at parties with strangers. Mm-hmm. So I do my best, I think, recovering, recharging when I'm alone in the hotel room with a book. That's my peaceful spot. So for me to get out and network with people, I got to have a purpose. Otherwise, it feels like I'm exhausting myself for no reason. So how do I find them? You would be surprised what kinds of people would say yes to a time-bound, specific, organized mentorship relationship. Neil, I'd like to meet with you 6 times over 12 weeks to accomplish these 2 tasks. And in exchange, I'm going to do this for you. You'd be surprised.
That's actually like if you know, and again, I, you know, since I've been collabing with David, and you know, my DMs have been, you know, kind of a little out of hand. That has been the number one question I got, and sitting here listening to you say that resonates with me. Like if I were to open up a DM from somebody and see that, I would have a hard time not saying no, because it was, to your point, it's very, you know, okay, you know what it is that you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I do like the time-bound element, and I like the fact that you're saying what you're going to provide back to them. One of the big concepts that we were talking about last week was the fact that it needed to be an approach that you had a lot of research behind, right? Yeah. These are the things I need. I know you've got the 2 of the 3, right? And this is what I'm looking to try to accomplish. But I think what we were missing was that time-bound element, as well as the piece of what you're going to give back out of it.
Absolutely. So Frankenstein comes through with looks like a compliment or a comment, if I can speak tonight. I always feel that people are too busy when I'm in search of a mentor, something I need to set aside. What's kind of your take on that, Joel?
Absolutely. Everybody's too busy when you need a mentor. Everybody's just flat too busy. Right. So yes, that is a valid, in my opinion, that's a valid perception. People will ask me, will you write a reference for me? And I'm very careful about the folks for whom I'll give a reference. And I'll be really, I'll exaggerate. I'll use some hyperbole in the bluntness. I like to refer people that make me look good. So if I can go to the CISO at Facebook and say, listen, the guy you need to run your SOC is Sharon. Sharon's amazing. And when he meets her and he comes back and says, dude, how on earth did you know Sharon? Right? I look good. So that the mentor thing works the same way. Am I too busy to write a reference letter? Of course. I'm just too busy. But it's a matter of what finds time in my life. And so someone comes to me and says, I'm looking for mentorship in this particular thing. You're good at it. And I noticed you did it in these areas. I suck at it. And here's what I've tried. I would like 6 times, over 12 weeks to accomplish this. And in exchange, I could do these things for you in the vein of this mentor goal, right? So we're working towards the same goal. Of course, I'll make time for that.
I think what you're describing, though, is you're describing, I think, kind of some of the frustration that some of us who are been in the industry or have been on the receiving end of folks like Jeff reaching out to us from a sales perspective, is put in the effort to know your target and to know your audience so that you can build a case on providing value. Don't just take mentorship. You know, you're trying to build that case that says, I know this about you, therefore I want to learn this. I'll give an example. I'll give an example just for folks watching. I had come to you and I had said, you did this thing going from Splunk to Lucidum. I have an opportunity and I want to know what your thought process was. Can you help me? Yeah.
That's a great, because you're tying in what you're after, what I need. It was clearly a passionate thing. A lot of people want to be able to say, you know, I know Jeff, he's my mentor. That won't fly. There's no time for that.
Why won't it fly? So put on your CISO hat and you got a candidate sitting in front of you and you're evaluating him and says, Jeff's my mentor. Why doesn't that fly?
I'm not interviewing Jeff. And if Jeff was really your mentor, you would have known enough not to try to drop his name. I would have seen through what you demonstrate. You know, you must have been mentored by Neil because Jeff's not good at that.
All right, this is how tonight's gonna go.
Yeah, exactly. You've clearly already mentored Joel. I see.
Fasochi Actual says, Joel, with the information you know now, if you had to start over, would you do anything different?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Oh my word. So how far back we go? Let's keep this limited to info. Yes, there's a number of things. So what I would
wouldn't have worked on Hemlock ever.
Wouldn't have moved to Silicon Valley.
I wouldn't have sold my company to VMware.
Oh, shots fired, Jeff. Shots fired.
It's love. It's love. I think
exactly. So is Hemlock, by the way.
So, yes, I'll answer that question. But let me first not answer the question. What I would do again every single time is always be the garbage man. Every job I took, I looked for the worst stinky responsibility in that org. And everybody does the opposite.
Well, no, did you just say the CISO is like the stinkiest job in an org?
I think you did. Hey, Neil, for you, it's threat and vulnerability management.
Sorry, go carry on.
So there I was, king of the pigsty. And so everybody wants to be in red team because it's cool and we can watch you in movies.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to do GRC.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to do third-party vendor management.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to write policies. I did those. I sought those out for two reasons. One, nobody expects anything great out of you. Two,
you can always overachieve.
I want everybody to hear that, right? The bar is low.
That is outstanding.
Right? So if I'm going to do the 440, I'm going to do it with kindergartners.
Did you see? I was like way ahead of them. they couldn't hold their own.
I wrote the best damn
destroyed
policy.
them. I really destroyed them. It was great. Yeah. You should have seen it.
I'm willing to charge the mound at the Little League games.
Oh, laugh it up, Neil. I've seen you.
Oh, no. Jeff goes on mute.
Yeah, exactly. Again.
Yeah.
So the second reason to always be the garbage man is no one takes your credit. And so you learn how to give credit to others and you don't get distracted by the politics. And as you build that grassroots support, man, everything Neil does, even though the work sucks, he's amazing. And he's giving credit to others. That's the person that you want to give more responsibility to. The person that you're very careful of is the Iago. From right, you want to be careful of the person that wants to find the most prominent position and steal glory from other people. That person's got to go. So those are the two things that I would have done again,
and not do much of the work. Right, it's always tied to those same people.
Those tend to go together. You're right, Jeff. What I would do different? Too often, I was the smartest guy in the room. I think quick, but I speak faster, and my mouth would get me into trouble. I would look at things that were obviously wrong, and I would say so. And it's for the good of the company, right? We can all see this, right?
Right.
Let's fix this. And I didn't understand that companies don't exist to solve problems. Bureaucracies don't exist to solve problems. There's this complex beehive of relationships. And so there I was kicking over people's beehives saying, well, that's stupid and that's ridiculous and you should know better and you should work harder. And that slowed my career and hurt my relationships with people.
I want to pick on that before Carmen pushes the next question. Sitting at the CISO, sitting at those chief security roles and things that you sat at, can you elaborate on that? Why are security people so focused on, we must solve every vulnerability? I don't want any Windows NT or Windows XP in my environment. No, you can't have password 123. Dear God, why don't we have MFA enabled? What is that conversation like in trying to balance being the smartest guy in the room and knowing that what you're saying is for the right of the company versus actually getting the mission accomplished because you're not stomping all over executive leadership?
Yeah, that is the most difficult thing. More CISOs burn out because they're not listening to me and this thing's going down than any other executive and for any other reason. That is an enormous problem. It's my opinion. And so I'll describe what I see, and I'm not attempting to justify what I see. I'm describing what I see. Every CISO is intensely engaged in personal risk management. If the company for which I'm the CISO gets popped in a way that hits the Wall Street Journal, not only will I lose my job, I'll never get another one. Like that's in the back of all of our heads. So we all act like the guy from Grapes of Wrath, and we kill our bunny. We got to control it, and we got to pet it, and it's got to be okay. And so as a consequence, we run into the head of cloud, or we run into the head of DevOps, and he or she says, well, no, it's just the way we've always done it. And you're like, that's what I'm talking about. That's exactly the problem. You don't understand. Now let me set you straight. How many times in life has somebody setting you straight set you straight?
Yeah.
So that is why we react this way, because we know that we're right. But somebody gave me a great piece of wisdom. Neil, you and I talked about having things in little packets.
Yeah.
This little packet of wisdom was this. Joel, do you want to win or do you want to be right? Because you're not going to be both.
So say that again, real
Do
slow.
you want to win or do you want to be right?
Why can't you be both as a CISO in a company?
Well, that is why I started my own company.
I have no idea, so I just left.
I showed those guys.
Wait, I know the solution to this.
So the solution has been, why are things the way they are? What have you done that has got us to this point? What are the current priorities? What are the investments? What else matters besides the things Joel knows are right? That when I talked earlier about going into a conversation and only asking questions, when I am my most frustrated and I know I'm walking into the room with somebody who's going to be entirely objectional and doesn't want to hear me, I will only ask them questions.
Your closest friends know when you're really, really pissed at them because you only ask questions.
And I also don't use contractions. That's the other indication that I'm angry.
So I have a question. Someone comes to you and says that they're having a difficult time trying to figure out if they're even one of those kinds of people. What are some things you would say, if you see this, or that, you're definitely struggling with this. And I think your solution for just asking questions is brilliant. I think people will struggle with implementing that the right way. Because, in sales, we're trained to go into open-ended questions.
Yes.
And then listen, and then repeat back, and then ask a follow-up, secondary, tertiary level question based on what you learned, right? Active listening, open-ended questions.
Yes.
And the reality is, then you get to find out what they're really saying, what their real underlying opinion is. But how do you get people to recognize that they have that problem of being the smartest person in the room?
That's awesome. That's awesome. The other thing I bet that you're trained to do is have a goal for every meeting.
Oh, absolutely.
We don't.
I'm going to go in. When you say we, CISOs don't.
CISOs don't.
Yeah.
I'm going to go in and I'm going to tell that CTO that what they're doing is got to stop.
I like how you're like, you got the finger going.
Exactly. It's like, I went all diva on you.
I'm going to tell that CTO what he's going to do.
So you're right.
My daughter could do a diva pose. I can't even do it, but she's got a wicked diva pose,
right? She might be a. So how do you tell? So, Joel, how would you know that you have this problem? Let's grab one of those old mentors, Socrates. We all know the expression Socratic questioning. And we think what it means is asking tricky questions to make the other person go, oh, I am an idiot, right? That isn't what it is. The principle began with, in order to debate someone, you have to be able to articulate their argument better than they can. So my question then would be, are you that kind of a person? Well, who's your conflict with? Well, it's with legal. Can you articulate legal's position better than they can? Well, it's stupid. I mean, they don't understand.
Said every cybersecurity person ever.
Right? Here's your sign. So that's how you tell. So when I go into that conflict, if I know your argument better than you, I'm not looking to quash you and say, I bet you're going to say, and I bet next you're going to say, I'm going to agree with you. And I'm going to add to your argument. I'm going to agree and amplify. And then we can both look at this problem from your perspective. And now you know that I am in your shoes. And then you're going to ask me, how come you don't agree with me if you understand it this well? Then I get to say, well, I got these concerns over here. Can you look at them? And now we're moving.
How would you solve them? Yeah.
So I think that ties in good to the question that's up here with reckless prod, right? Which is, again, back to this dealing with other people, right? Is there no argument that this would require better people negotiating and influencing skills to convey the gravity of those situations?
So reckless, Mr. or Ms. Prod, you have, forgive me for this, you are begging the question, the situation has gravity that has a shared understanding.
Everybody understands the definition of your gravity.
Yeah. And that might not be true. Now, one of the companies I worked at, my red team discovered a remote shell exploit in one of our products. And nobody would listen to the red team.
Wow.
So what does that mean? Does it mean they don't understand what an exploit, remote, or shell mean? Does it mean they don't understand the implications of that problem? Does it mean that the document doesn't convey the emotional impact that it ought to? I don't know. So how do I start work? Well, I wonder if I can get them in my red team shoes. So I grabbed the tech leaders and I brought them to the red team shoes. And I said, okay, you can see here, we're going out through a VPN, so non-corporate network. And you can see here where and now watch as we do this. So now watch as we move laterally to another customer. And then they go, how long have you known this? Well, the emails are timestamped. So,
but I think, but you're conveying the problem though, right? Which is that people don't understand the language we use until we show them their picture on the face of a conference room camera when we hacked into it, because it's password is password.
Yes. Yes. And Jeff talked earlier, he didn't use this expression. My expression for what Jeff was describing is skin in the game, where you get the mentor to have skin in the game. Well, the problem with CISOs is risk is outsourced to us naturally. I can't count the number of people at all of the places I've worked. I've worked a lot of places. I can't hold a job. At all of the places that I've worked, who have said, oh, thank God you're here. It's really nice to have a CISO that can take care of security. And I think, okay, we're going to have lunch and we got to fix that.
we got to start with that conversation first in your definition of fixing security.
Right, exactly.
They're outsourcing it. You know,
right.
Thank God I have an Italian neighbor. I just bought a Fiat. Well, hey, hold on.
Would you, before I ask this question, like just pop on the screen, then I think that's a great analogy, right? People are used to outsourcing the risk to the CISO org, but then you bring cyber insurance into the game, and now they're diversifying their risk portfolio between the security organization and cyber insurance?
Yeah, awesome topic. So way too nerdy. You tell me if we go too nerdy.
No.
The problem that we've got in cybersecurity writ large is we don't have an actuarial table of risk.
Yeah.
We don't know the dollar increment or decrement to risk with the implementation of a particular tool in a particular way. Or how many hops away from the CEO is the CISO? Or is security part of IT?
Let's break that down, right? We don't know that if we put in Splunk, we're going to decrease our risk or likelihood of an attack by 10%. And therefore, it allows us to monetize the risk reduction of tool investment.
Well, and there's no common language for how to quantify it either.
That's right. That's right.
Like, oh, it's going to be a lot better.
And it'll only be a lot better if you use my competitor. So when you go to buy car insurance, you're making a bet. You're betting that your premium will be less than the damage you cause. And insurance companies make a ton of money because they're better at making those bets than you are.
Right.
You flip that around for a CISO. So what should the budget be next year? Well, based on my charisma, my ability to make a good PowerPoint, right, because I don't have anything better. And that bothers me a lot. So that, I think, is the first problem that we face here.
Yeah. So Aaron Dubs says, Joel, when hiring somebody for your team, would you rather hire the person that has all the soft skills but lacks the tech skills and be willing to teach them, or would you rather take the tech skills superstar?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and I don't know where Aaron Dubs places in that. So it depends. My favorite.
Oh, there goes the legal answer. It depends.
Yeah. Well, so let me be specific about the depends. I started a SOC with a guy whose previous work experience had been with the Peace Corps doing water irrigation in Africa. And he was amazing. And what made him amazing was nothing flabbergasted him. It didn't matter what the incident was. He's seen people dying. On the other hand, when it gets to digital forensics and I have insider threat, I'm going to put somebody between you and my customer because I need you to be so intense into your technical capability that your soft skills, I can work around it. So that's why it depends on that slot. And so when I talked earlier about picking different tools, there's different roles in an org, and the personality of the company affects this, need different tools. A friend of mine runs he's part of the British intelligence, GCHQ.
Yeah.
He purposefully hires people who are far on the autistic spectrum. So, like stereotypically, there's a deficiency in what we'd call soft skills, but it doesn't matter because I need people who are willing to drill, focus, be exact, be binary in their thinking, because it's that crucial. And the reason this came about in our conversation is he was trying to promoted this person to give a presentation, and the guy said, "I'll leave. Don't make me present. I'm not going to do it."
Wow.
So it's a relationship. You bring somebody in, giving them a clear expectation of what's expected, and then learning from them, where do you want to go from here? You can teach just about anything, but it does depend on the role and how quickly it has to be an expertise.
Awesome.
And if that was a non-answer, Aaron, ask again in a different way.
I think and this gets back to, I think, what some of the questions that new entry folks have into the career field, right, is how valuable, like, it's the imposter syndrome. And I've had people that I mentor, and there's a guy, he's in chat right now. I see him chatting. He's getting out of the military pretty soon. And he thinks that he needs to be up here in his execution, in his knowledge base and everything else to even be competitive inside the cybersecurity arena, when in reality, we joke about the GRC, but the bar is probably actually somewhere down along in here. And we're in need of maybe not people who have 9,000, certs at the end of their name, but people who may just have a set of technical skills, but are really just not basement nerds in a hoodie who don't know how to talk to senior leadership.
Yeah, that is so personal, and it's excruciating when you're in that position because you're constantly judging yourself. If I was more technical, I would have got that gig. If I had better soft skills, I would have got that other gig. And that landscape is totally shifting on you. And so it probably feels like gambling when you're in that position. Yeah. My suggestion to you is stop looking at other people. Stop comparing yourself to other people without understanding the comparison of your skills. Like if you're a D&D character, compare your stats. Know what the campaign needs for the stats. And so to your friend, to your mentee, how do you know what this level is? If you tell me that you've interviewed with people at ServiceNow that run GRC and at PepsiCo that run GRC. It had Blue Cross that run GRC. And the commonality among them is they're all well-versed in third-party risk management tools. They all have experience with ISO, PCI, and FISMA. And you don't have experience with FISMA or third-party management tools. That's a totally different playing field than I need to be here.
Right.
And
yeah. So we're gonna shift on you. This is the volley that comes with chat. So Frankenstein comes through with Joel. What is your philosophy on team development and training?
People will do anything if they believe you love them. They will only do what you instruct if they believe you hold them accountable. So get to know your team's family. Know what their hobbies are. Not to manipulate them, but so that you can relate to them. And that creates a team cohesion that is irreplicable in any other way that I've seen. On training, 3 approaches. I've got my laptop over there running OpenBSD and the new Ubuntu release because I can't ever get my hands off keyboard. I need to, right? Is it an insecurity? I don't feel like it. It's something that I need to be able to do to be relevant and to even have conversations with people. Oh yeah, he's that exec he doesn't do tech stuff anymore. He's not relevant anymore. I don't want to have a relationship with him.
Right.
I don't want that. The second bit, so self-training, number 1. Number 2, mentor training. And I would treat this like a training course. And that's kind of what I've laid out before. So you do your OKRs and you get your KPIs for the year. And one of those things is you need to develop more skills in a technical or a soft skill. I would absolutely put in your IDP, your individual development plan, I would put, I'm going to go meet with the head of this unit that is good at that. And he or she's going to teach me the skill. We've already worked it out.
Yeah.
And then third is formal training.
So let me pick on the formal training one just a little bit, just since we're on the topic of training. One of the things that was frustrating for me leading cybersecurity organizations, right, was I very much believe in the value of training, having been an instructor, having been a SANS instructor, having taught for the Air Force and built the training unit at the Air Force. I think education is critically important, but it's frustrating to look at your options out there and know that on the budget sheet, the first line item that gets cut right after, travel is any type of certification, any type of training, anything else like that. And you can see the hope drain from your team's face when you tell them that you can only send 2 people to training, or you can't send anybody to training, or things like that. What's the peek behind the curtain at the CISO level on that conversation?
So this will sound flippant, probably because it is. Training, you just want a paid vacation. That is absolutely, when you get in the room to do your budget, hey, you allocated $5,000 an employee for training. Let's make that $5,000 a quarter total. Okay. So in order, as the head of that org, you have to know that's coming.
Absolutely.
There is no way an individual contributor is going to be able to say, come on. And then you put them through the paces, and they've got to do all these weird things to prove that they are the chicken that gets fed this course. It's ridiculous.
It is.
Compensation, part of your comp is training. That's how I viewed it. So when you join, you get 2 courses a year, and that is this much max for each of those. And you spend them how you want. You got to coordinate time off with your boss so that no duties drop. It's part of your comp. And that, because it is a benefit. The thing about external training is it's something that you get. The company benefits, you bet. But when you leave, you've got that cert. And so it's absolutely an employee compensation. And if I were looking for a position, I would negotiate that up front. How hard is it to say, what do you expect for compensation, Mr. Bridges? Well, I expect an industry standard salary, and I know what that is, as well as equity and bonus. In addition, you want me to be sharp and valuable, and while I will do that on my own time, obviously you'll contribute to that. So I will expect $10,000 a year in paid training.
I'd never thought about that being part of the negotiation package, but that absolutely makes sense. Yeah.
Well,
and then they'll tell you
as an employee benefit. I love it.
Yeah.
Palmy, one of our VIPs in chat, comes through with Joel, of all the entry-level jobs in the InfoSec that you have experience with, which would you say are the most rewarding and foundational?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to have to yeah. So I was going to say, I got to give you 2. What's the most rewarding? You know, the most rewarding thing is when, and I know probably most people think, I don't want to be a manager, I get hands off. When you're a manager and you build a relationship with your team and somebody comes to you and says, I didn't tell you this, but my wife had this sickness. And when you let me work remote for the week, that's what I was doing, taking care of it. When you can take care of it's not a family, and I'm not going to pretend like it is. When you can take care of your friends, that is the most rewarding. But you said of all the entry level jobs. So the most foundational is going absolutely to be either a SOC analyst or in GRC.
Now, I think most people can relate to the SOC analyst because it's technical. It probably is in line with where they think they want to go long term. But explain your thought process behind the GRC side, because I think that's people get to your point. The garbage man. It's the I don't want to go do risk and compliance.
I know. And when people say, "What do you do?" You're like, "Oh, I'm in security." On the other hand, if they ask you and you're a SOC, it's like, "Oh, I'm at a SOC." Like, that's
I write policies and do risk assessments. Nobody says that.
You show up in an
like, he just said he's in risk and compliance. I know it.
Or I'm just gonna make one more shot across the bow. Or all you do is spend your time in Archer the entire time, just logging everything at Archer.
Can we finally be done with Archer? Can we all, I don't know, petition the PCI Council and say you won't accept evidence from Archer and then just be done with it?
Not until they sell it to IBM.
Okay. Right.
It's your death now.
Evolution of man. It's almost the fish in the sea. So the reason GRC is, I have a mentee who is doing a career transition. And I recommended strongly a GRC position to him. And he said, really?
I thought you liked me.
Right. So this is the end of our relationship?
This is how love dies.
It's not me, it's you, and you're a GRC person. The benefit, and listen, you got to go into it with the I am going to kill everything I need to survive if you're going to go into GRC. If you go in and you're just another GRC schleb who knows that you're taking your time on the oar until you can get a job that you can see the sun on the boat, then you don't take the GRC gig. Mm-hmm. But you take that GRC gig and you learn quarter end, tie to revenue, due diligence, how to respond to contracts and inquiries from customers in and outbound, right? The Janus face of that. You learn the contribution of a certification to revenue. And I don't mean the binary. Oh, of course it ties to revenue, but you learn which aspects are difficult and who those leaders are because you deal with the leaders. And so when it comes time for you to move laterally and move into security architecture or go into the forensics or go into whatever it is you want to move into next, you know those people. And even if it's at a different company, you know how those people think, what they want and what motivates them. So now you're the manager of a SOC. You went in as a lead in GRC or as an individual contributor, and now you move lateral. The company won't probe from within because they take you for granted and they think you're a GRC person. That's going to happen. So you move to a different company, and now you're the manager of a SOC because in your training, you went and did SOC courses and you did some rotations in the SOC because it was your idea to start a SOC rotation program. And now you take that experience to this new company, and now you're the SOC manager. So an incident pops. Now you know, let's bring in legal. And by the way, this might affect this line of business. I know that this influences our ISO because Control 1732 deals with reporting breaches to customers, but we haven't identified that this affects customer data. Like, look how powerful you are now.
Right.
You're not just a person saying, yeah, I'm pretty sure that was a Visual Studio problem. The DLLs were corrupted.
But I think the same argument can make. I've heard this story before with folks who look to IT audit and internal audit as an entryway into cyber because, you're still doing assessments and you're still doing controls assessments and you're still engaged in the IT and the cybersecurity teams as you're doing internal audit functions. And so if you can embrace that and you can do it, it helps grease those skids as a transition into the cybersecurity team.
Absolutely. This GRC is not your career. It's your school. And you're going to learn everything you need for your next gig. So know what your next gig is and start stocking up those tools now.
And you would agree that because of the state that cybersecurity in 3.5 million open jobs worldwide, because of the fact that we will always need people to make this better, we shouldn't just be so focused on, I want to be red team, and so this is my only path. You get into GRC and you make a plan for what your second and third and fourth moves are after that.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. Have that plan. And listen, I'm not telling you everybody needs to be ambitious to be good at cybersecurity. When I was first promoted to a director, I resigned. I didn't want to be a director because I'd watched those guys. I've hung around with enough senior directors and CISOs that there was no chance I wanted that for my life. Mm-hmm. And so it took me time to gear up and say, oh, so no matter what, somebody's going to be a director. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to be a jerk. Maybe I can do this differently.
Right.
Flattering myself, obviously, but
yeah. So Net Fraser comes through with Joel, with your experience coming from the ground up, has your perspective changed on how to manage your team?
Yeah, it has. So I managed people at the wood mill. Very different. So managing a team, I'm not the world's greatest manager. In fact, when I left Splunk, I actively sought my replacement to find in my replacement somebody who had complementary strengths, somebody who was pretty much my opposite, who had strengths where I was weak, because I knew that's what Splunk, in my opinion, needed to go to the next level. So I'll answer the question, but realize I'm kind of just another idiot. So how's my perspective changed on managing the team? I am firmly in the hire adults, set really clear goals, and then my role is to be the cow catcher on the train and the sheepdog. I clear your obstacles and I make sure you're all going in the right direction. Sometimes that doesn't work. There are some people that take advantage of that, and they take advantage of that by biting other members of the team. And so that's when I have to go deep and get specific. But that's my perspective on managing a team.
As an employee who might be listening, who has to, because I can resonate with that leadership style very much, and that's very much how I choose to lead my teams as well. Is clear obstacles and stay the F out of your way while you get crap done. Right.
Yep.
If somebody's listening to this is like, dear God, I wish I had a boss like that, but I don't. I've got a boss who's in my poop every day looking for the corners of corn. How do you coach somebody like that to deal with that?
I had that boss. So I had a boss that every time I showed up, there was something I didn't do right. That boss demonstrated their bossness by being hypercritical. And honestly, I thought to myself, I feel like I'm going to a mall strip karate studio where the sensei is going to teach me everything about my life, and all I want to do is my freaking job, right?
Right.
So what I learned is, number one, you run straight at the bully. Number two, they need something. And what he needed was he needed seen in charge, smarter than me, and he was very insecure. So he was constantly testing me to see whether or not I would make a mistake that would make him look bad. So now this is very much like mentoring. This is very much ask the question. So as I asked questions and learned about him, what I did with him is I would come in and I would say, so Neil, here's what I'm working on right now. I'm stuck. This is where I'm stuck. Here's the two things I've tried, and I'm thinking of doing number 3. What do you think? Because I knew what he needed to do was rip something apart. So I would offer him something that would actually help me, but let him rip it apart. And then he felt like, yeah, I got to kick down doors and throw axes, but none of it was personal. None of it made me mad and made me want to rage quit or tell him what I thought of him.
I think you frame that really well, right? Which is give them what it is that they need in that validation moment so that you can get what you need to get the mission accomplished.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Maze comes through with, what are companies doing to deal with shortages in the cyber field?
I don't think, so that's again, just a perspective. What happened during coronavirus, from talking to lots of folks, is in March, everybody went, okay, we can make it to Easter. And everybody went home. And so all the IT teams then doubled on their bandwidth. Everybody's going to be working through our VPN. And then Memorial Day, end of May, when that hit, people started saying, this is going to take forever. But security is reactive. We are not leaders typically in an organization. We typically wait and look and see, okay, what's IT going to do? What's Corp going to do? Okay, we'll go secure it, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying I observe this happen.
Right.
So it really wasn't until September when people started saying, oh, okay, well, maybe we need to switch to a non-VPN approach. Maybe we need to go to a zero trust-ish kind of a thing. In the meanwhile, they locked budgets. They laid people off.
Yeah.
Let's tighten our belts while we get through this. So you got two things in place. You have a cybersecurity shortage. You have a lack of appreciation for what cybersecurity does. How do you quantify what you do? If we let go 20% of your staff, would our security decrease by 20%? And people outside of security are asking this question. And so right now there's been a depression in hiring. And I think in order for that hiring to come back up now, if we stay remote or if we stay disproportionately remote, I think the cybersecurity shortages are going to begin to be filled. But don't count on a company knowing how to fill it. If you're looking for a gig or you're looking to move up, I strongly suggest you know how to package yourself, how to aim at the position you're after, it's not casting a net. You are spearfishing. And I would look at it that way, and you will be one of the ones that gets the one you're after. Well, everybody else is wondering, hey, there's so many cyber jobs available. How come I can't find one?
Well, let me hold on that moment though, really quick, because
we've talked about that one a lot.
Yeah, because I think one of the things that happens, right, or that happened in the last 12 months, is you did see a lot of companies say, "Holy cow, we can actually make life work by working 100% remote." And we see companies like Microsoft saying, "You never have to come back in." We see Facebook saying, "You never have to come back in." We see lots of organizations that are like, yeah, we could totally do this 100% remote thing. But then we still have organizations like Netflix and Apple and other organizations that are like, no, we're gonna still make people come back in. Do you think that the balance has shifted enough between companies that have decided that they can make it work remote versus the ones who are just biding their time that they can bring everybody back on campus to address the demands of talent shortage? And I say that because it's, I worked for Abbott Laboratories up in North Chicago, and nobody wanted to live up in North Chicago to go work for Abbott. It didn't matter how sexy I made the security operations center up there. And
or
so
you.
Or me, right? I mean, this hoodie looks good on me and everything, but nobody wanted to come see me in a hoodie every day. So how do you contend with the need to bring in talent in an organization that refuses to adopt to a new way of thinking? And do you think there are enough companies that are adopting to a new way of thinking to fix the talent shortage?
So on a stream last week, somebody posted tips for hacking LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
Super, really good tips. Here's my
That was me.
Was that you? I take it back. And I don't know why anybody would waste time typing.
It's annoying, really.
Here's what I would. So your question is: is remote a thing, and is it going to remain a thing?
Yeah. Or is it shifted enough that because your point was you think we're going to see an impact on the cyber shortage because of more remote work. And my cynicism is I don't think enough companies are adopting that mentality to shift the shortage enough.
So there's going to be a couple things that I expect to happen, but here's what I would look for if I'm looking for a role. Every company that is public files a 10K, an 8K, a 10Q. Mm-hmm. Pull them and take a look at their real estate investment. Because if they're remote now, but they have outstanding leases that last 5 years, they will not be remote.
Mm.
That would be how I would, in that spearfishing approach, look. So if I know that there's no way I'm moving from Waukesha, Wisconsin, then I'm going to be looking for companies that do not have real estate holdings that are tied up.
That's a good tip. That's a good one right there.
Yeah, we keep talking about that as far as figuring out what leadership is trying to accomplish and what their goals are, so you can align your report writing to those initiatives and those stated goals and 10Ks, et cetera. But this is another awesome way to find that information out. I love that one.
Yeah, and don't be misled. So let me give you a specific example that might mislead someone. Splunk. So Doug Merritt announced on the investor call that he moved to Austin.
Mm-hmm.
And you might think to yourself, hot dog, Splunk's probably going to be all remote. But if you look at their filings, you know that they have increased their footprint in the Bay Area by 220%. And those are long-term build-outs and leases. So what are the chances they're going to be all remote? 0. What are the chances they're going to be mostly remote? Probably pretty small. So I would make sure that the signals you're using to make your conclusions are grounded in facts, not public statements, because the CEO can go anywhere.
That's Rank has his privilege. No, I think that's an amazing hack right there. That's one that I took a note on that one, because I think we're going to add that one to the list. I never thought about that. Is look at their real estate holdings. That's definitely that's money right there. That's worth it. All right, guys, we're done. Stream's over. We're good on that one. That's it.
Forever. It's over forever.
It's over.
That was the golden nugget for the night.
Closing the doors. All right, Fasochi, pivoting on you again. Joel, if someone had the goal of being a CISO, what steps would you recommend? And I'm gonna pull a Neil on this one, and I'm gonna say 4.
Go to a psychiatrist.
4 of them. Yeah,
get your own personal
There's
therapist.
definitely support groups. You can see a therapist. Probably you need to get a replacement liver on standby.
Don't stop there. There's got to be more.
Don't stop there. Yeah, exactly.
All right,
four things. Let's do 4 things.
Okay. Number 1, figure out why.
Why? I'm asking you, why do you figure out why? Explain the why.
Because determining the why will answer your next 3 steps. So let me give you some, this isn't flippant. Let me give you some example whys. I want to be a CISO because I want to be on the board of several security companies as I retire. I want to be a CISO because I want to be able to give presentations and be a known speaker so that I can start a company and help build its brand. I want to be a CISO because I want to grow and mentor a team, and I want people to put the fact they worked on my team in 18-point font on their resume. I want to be a CISO because all these guys are idiots and I'm the only one who can do it right. I'm not judging any of those, but find yours.
What was yours in going to Splunk? What was your why?
I wanted to start a company. So 5 years ago, I met with a bunch of VCs, and my question to them was, if 5 years from now, I come to you and say I'm founding a company, what would I have done or not done that would entice you to be interested in investing in my company? And I got a list, and I standardized that list, and I started knocking out the items on the list.
So it was a checkbox for you to get to your ultimate why.
That's right.
All right. So number 1, find your why.
Number 2, find at least 3 CISOs who share that why.
And how do you do that? I mean, networking, obviously, but how do you do that networking?
Yeah. So pretend you're red team and you're going to do some social engineering, and you're researching your target. So I wanted to start a company. Well, how many CISOs have started a company? Get access to Crunchbase. You can figure this one out. I want to be able to give presentations. Well, maybe Alex Stamos is on your list. Maybe Michael Coates, who was at Twitter and now has started his company, is on that list. Maybe Gerhardt from previously at Google is on that list. Right? So you can find people that are doing the thing that is your why to be a CISO. And then I would interview them. And I would come with a list of questions, and I would say, are you doing what you're doing now by accident or on purpose? Do you like it? Do you hate it? What would you do different? Like some of these questions that are being asked here, ask them these questions. You will be amazed. So the thing about CISOs, so little inside scoop, nobody listens to us. Ever.
So the reasoning should never be, I want to be a CISO because I want to be listened to.
Right. You're not going to change a company because nobody's going to listen to you.
Yeah. I want a position of influence. And that's not a CISO.
Man, Joel, you're really selling this CISO thing. If anyone wants to be a CISO after this session, then you need to go see a therapist.
No, if anybody wants to be a CISO, they're going to go see a BDSM therapist. That's what's going to happen here.
If you know that it is not like everybody looks and, oh yeah, she's got an open door policy, whatever that means. I don't know what she does. She seems to be out to lunch all the time and she gets to go meet with vendors.
It's open door because she's always gone.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But stay out of the office. So that's what it can look like from the outside. But when you're doing it, know why. Find people that share that why and ask them questions. Mm-hmm. The fact nobody listens to a CISO means you might be the second person that's ever been willing to listen. And that CISO will tell you everything. And you will know exactly what you're getting into.
Case in point, clearly nobody has ever listened to Joel, which is why we're here tonight.
Right? No, like an hour ago, somebody pulled my string and it's still reeling in.
All right, so that's 2. What's number 3?
Number 3 is do the garbage jobs.
Yeah.
So many CISOs I went from a big 4 and became a CISO. So many CISOs are, I moved laterally and became a CISO. Mm-hmm. And they really struggle because they don't understand what their teams do, what their teams need, how to make them successful, or then how to translate it to the board. So do those garbage jobs. Whatever your why is, do those garbage jobs, because by the time you show up, people will trust you. Oh yeah, that's the guy that gives everybody else credit. That's the guy that always makes sure that the hard stuff gets done. We can count on that person. That's who you want as your CISO.
All right, so the last one, the fourth thing that you should do.
Bring people with you. It's amazing when you apply for a CISO job and you look around and they don't have anything in place. Mm-hmm. And you look around and you go, man, you know what? I could use Brian over there. Mm-hmm. And Maria's going to slot right in there. And I'm going to bring Richard and put him over there. And all I got to do is let these people meet people. And all of a sudden we go from 0 to hero.
That's amazing that you say that, because I've told people that. It's like I have a playbook where it's like on that day 1 as a CISO, it's like you open that thing up and it's like, here are the people I'm calling.
That's it. But you have got to have a lot of homework already behind your belt before you just bring people, because you have to know them, they have to know you, they have to trust you, you have to know exactly what drives them so that you can say, hey, you're in this position over there, but if you come here, those things that we talked about like over the last year and a half, you're going to get all of that over here. I mean, Neil, I think you do a really good job of getting people around you that fill puzzle pieces in your overall picture of what you need, but you know exactly what they bring and you know exactly how they will fit in, so you can articulate that and set them up for success.
But I think that's what Joel's talking about, is that as you're coming up in a cybersecurity organization, you latch yourself on to people that you can depend on, and those become tools in a toolbox. I hate to say it like that, and again, not in a derogatory sense, but those are people that you collect that's like, okay, I know that if I need a red teamer, when I land at a company X, if I need a red team, I'm gonna call this person and be like, hey, I got something for you. Let's go do something awesome.
Yeah, but you'll never get that person if you're all work. If you're already always pushing people around you down to get ahead. Like I said, you've got to do the work ahead of time in order to 100%. Set yourself up to be trusted by those people.
100%.
100%.
So you keep using the garbage work, and I think this was I saw this question kind of come across. I think this is an apt question. Let's look at a CISO org, right? Mm-hmm. And let's kick that ladder down and let's talk about it. What are some of the garbage jobs inside of a CISO org that nobody wants to do, but are things that definitely fit that definition of doing the garbage work?
Awesome. So let me sketch out an imaginary CISO organizational chart. Mm-hmm. So I'll use NIST, right? Identify, protect, detect, respond, recover. Mm-hmm. So in Identify, I've got my policy org. I've certainly got my security architecture organization. In Protect, I've got what I would call security ops. I know other people, that's the SOC. But security ops is select, deploy, maintain security tooling throughout the organization. Detect and Respond is my monitoring and alerting. It's my incident response, and it's my threat intelligence and forensics team. Recover, well, we're all in the cloud, so we don't need anybody doing BCDR.
So we don't need anybody to recover at all.
Not at all. So, Maze, that's your first hint of a garbage job. So then we've got groups that run laterally across those organizations. And so those would include training and awareness, governance, risk and compliance, third-party vendor risk management, any of policy issues. And then there's often special projects. Those are the crap jobs. Somebody that needs to, CCPA rolled out. We have to identify all the data in the org. Here's a bunch of spreadsheets, go interview people.
Every privacy person who's hearing this right now is cussing you. Like, privacy's not a garbage job.
Oh, they know better.
So privacy is a mushroom, right? They keep you in the dark and they feed you fertilizer, and you know it. And the closer you can knit security and privacy together, we ain't the same, but we have intersecting fire, right? We can support each other.
Right.
So any of those things are garbage, or what I call garbage jobs. So I spent a year doing SOX readiness for a company. ITGCs, interviewing people, doing control walkthroughs. And you know what? I met every senior manager in the IT and security org and was able to develop a relationship and an assessment of them. I moved from there to doing all of the application ITGCs at the next layer of that Sarbanes-Oxley work. And now I learned both hemispheres of the brain of that particular company. My next role was a senior manager in security, because all of the people that hated the existing senior manager said, you know, Joel's really good at this. So garbage work.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, please.
Finish your thought. I've got a question about the timestamp of all this stuff, though.
Yeah. 1 year and 1 year. So the garbage work paid off, and I did a superior job because the bar was low. Nobody took credit because
it's SOX work.
It's garbage work, right? But then everybody knew Joel solves problems, and he's not afraid to get his hands dirty, and he's not proud of what he does. You get what I mean when I say that.
Right.
So he's the kind of guy we'd like to work with in a position where we might be vulnerable to him.
But let's put that in perspective, right? That's, you did that over several companies, right? So you were able to carry that message about the garbage work from company 1 and then move it to company 2 and then move it to company 3. It's not like you did 20 years in one company to also develop the political relation capital that you need, yada, 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 to go along with it. You were able to carry that strategy over as you transition from company to company. As you put it in our private conversations, right? You're a bad employee.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. So
when you were about to get one of these garbage positions.
Yeah.
Oh,
I agree, Jeff. I agree. I felt exactly like that. I didn't know what to say.
And we
dumbfounded. I felt dumbfounded.
Jeff is it. God, we should put Jeff on. We have to put Jeff on mute for this one for a second. All right. So while we wait for Jeff to come back a little bit, whoopsie. I think that's also. I think the garbage. The garbage analogy is something that I talk about frequently, because it's like I think people think I want to be a pen tester, so I follow this path, and I try to get people to think about hacking the system, which is maybe you start out in IT audit, maybe you start in GRC, maybe you start in risk assessment, and you make friends in the SOC or you make friends in the red team, and you position yourself over that way.
So good. And still use that same CISO plan. What's your why for the red team?
Yeah. All right, looks like Jeff's back now.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's good.
I was just asking, were you pre-communicating? Yeah, I know. It was kind of nice, wasn't it? I know.
The laptop had too much wine.
Wow.
So what was your question, Jeff?
Thank you. No, when you were picking up a garbage job, so you didn't get stuck in it, did you say, for the next year, I want to do this?
What was your commitment level? Like, what did you say to yourself? Like, I'm only going to do this for a year, or I'm only going to do this for 6 months, or what was your like, how did you mentally discipline yourself to stick to that garbage job?
Yeah. So this will be humiliating, but I'll go with it.
Welcome to the Cyber Insecurity stream.
Yeah. I'm gonna go all Tom Cruise and jump on the couch here. So when I was a kid, about 6 blocks from our house was the garbage dump, and so this is when was this? Early 80s, late 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And the garbage dumps were not what they are now.
Mm-hmm.
When you go to the garbage dump now, it's terrible. When you went to the garbage dump then, it was amazing when you were a kid.
You had tables on the sides of the garbage that people were like giving away.
Okay, I feel way better. Thank you, Neil.
No,
you made away.
Even
if you were lying, I feel like you made away.
Yep.
So as kids, we go and pick through the garbage dump and find toys, like things people threw away. There were treasures in there. All right.
I'm with you.
So when you take that ITGC job, you are looking for the treasures. And as soon as you find all the treasures that are there, you switch jobs. So you got to know what you're after. You got to know when you see a treasure. And then you got to know when you're done. So let me give you an example. That ITGC, I met somebody there who has worked with me for the last 10 years. And we became friends there. We were partners in a lot of terrible political situations and solved problems. And I trust her. Mm-hmm. And now she's with me in this new company because I can count on her.
Right.
That's treasure that I didn't expect to find. The treasures that I was looking for was, how do these systems actually operate? Who owns them? Like, I can't tell you when you go into a company and you say, so who's responsible for that application? You got 9 people pointing their fingers this way because apps don't know where they run on IT, and IT can't tell you what apps are in, but I knew them all. And so once I knew those things, then I'm looking at security and I know what gig I want, because they don't know these answers. And I know why they need to know these answers. And so when I went for the role, I said, I need to leave this role, and this is the new job that I'm after. And they said, we can find lots of people to replace you where you are, and we can find better people to fill this role. And I said, if you can, you should grab them. Meanwhile, you've got me, and I bet you can't find somebody better.
Wow.
Because I knew the guy was kind of a bully.
Right.
So I was able to play with him, right, a little in that, but I had the chops because I had been finding the treasures in the dump.
And again, I want to emphasize that treasures aren't just like little nuggets of knowledge, little pieces here and there. You found a person, you found a process, you found a technology, you found something inside of yourself that was something you never knew existed. Like you when you talk about looking for the treasures, I mean, it may sound a little bit cheesy, but you're looking on a lot of different levels of where those treasures can manifest themselves.
Not cheesy, exactly right. When I owned a security company for 10 years, and we did regulatory security and compliance for financial institutions. And what I told everybody we hired is this: your job is to know that network in 3 days better than the oldest person there.
Right.
And like, that's a skill you can learn. Like, when Jeff walks into a room, he knows my boss better than I know him, even though I've worked for him for 8 years, because Jeff has hooks and handles and he knows what he's after. That's the skill you develop as a garbage man. I know exactly where those treasures are, how to exploit them, how to use them, and how to use them to step up to the next rung of that ladder.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So Frankenstein coming back says, what are your thoughts on how busy a good CISO should be? Asking because I'm doing some evaluation of my own CISO at work. And when you do this, Joel, I want you to tell the procrastination story that you told me yesterday when you and I talked, because I think that ties in pretty well with this story too.
I don't want to tell the procrastination story. All right, I'll tell it.
I'll tell it later.
Breaking news, CNN. Joel Fulton says CISOs never procrastinate. So how busy should a good CISO be? When I was at Splunk, I got in the car about 6 a.m. and I get home about 8 at night. I worked all day Saturday and a couple hours on Sunday getting ready for the week.
Was that because Splunk was incredibly broken, or because you were incredibly motivated?
It was owing to the demands of team, owing to the demands of the internal maturation of Splunk. So everybody's got a level of brokenness, and then owing to the external demands. Customers want this. New product partnerships want this, et cetera. I'm not saying that. I'm not proud of that. I'm just describing what was. How should that time be broken up? Let me answer the question that way, Frankenstein, if that's okay. That time, here's how when I had a good week, here's how I broke it up. Every Friday at 4:00, I would sit for at least 2 hours with a blank sheet of paper. I have a notebook, several of them that are just blank. And on that notebook, I would rethink everything. And I'm not exaggerating. I would redesign the org. And I know that I didn't tell anybody because that would freak people out, right? The CISO on a Friday, urban redesign the org.
What's broken that we have to have an org redesign right now?
Yeah, right, exactly. But what I wanted to do is say, so what happens if? Would things get better? Would it be stable? Would it be more? And I would look at the whole week. What did I screw up? What needs to be done differently? So that was my Friday, 4 to 6, back porch or on the lanai at the office. That's what I would do. The rest of the time is meetings. I've got 2 jobs as the CISO, right? We talked about the cow catcher and the sheepdog. So the sheepdog part is I need to meet with everybody on my team at least once a quarter. I need to meet with my leadership team as a group once a week, as an individual once a week. I need to meet with all of my peers and my superordinate executives at least every other week. And I need to have it be relaxed time. I can't come in and say, okay, we've got 30 minutes. Here's my schedule. This is what I want to tell you. And I need to be asking questions during that time. So most of my 8 to 5 looked really lazy because I'm in meetings listening to people talk. And then the work, there's 6 revisions of a PowerPoint that are necessary now, is in the after hours. So it's hard to evaluate your CISO by the amount of hours he or she puts in. It's easy, and I think valid, to evaluate your CISO or yourself, if you are, by how you're allocating those hours. Team number 1, peers number 2, your boss and other superordinate people number 3.
What was your and again, I'm going to push you on it, right? What was your epiphany moment that helped you realize that you needed to move away from CISO, especially as it related to how you were spending your time?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'll tell you that story. I got to give it a different explanation. But
absolutely. Absolutely.
So I went to Splunk with the intent to learn skills that I knew I was deficient in order to start a company. I told Splunk so. And it was part of the roadmap. So I enjoyed Splunk, love the people there, great company. I'm not a shareholder. I don't have any financial interest. Really great people. A lot of those folks have now moved over to Databricks, and same kind of vibe is happening there, and hasn't left Splunk. So great companies. The corporate world. So Neil has been teasing me here about the fact that I've admitted I'm a terrible employee. So here's what that means to me. When you're in a corporate job, and not just a CISO, but I'll use the CISO. So I know that February 25th, I've got a board presentation due. And I know that board presentation takes to build. And I got 4 hours today. I can build that deck today. But if I build that deck today and send it up, then the committee that's collecting the board decks, they're going to take about 6 hours and churn through my deck, and they're going to kick it back to me. And they're going to have font changes, verbiage changes. Hey, get rid of some words, put more pictures. Hey, didn't you get the new deck? They're going to do the Office Space thing, right? All that happens. And so I'm going to spend another 4 hours revamping the deck. So now we're at 14 hours. And then I'm going to send it back. And then they will have changed the template. Or someone else will have submitted the deck. And now we need to dovetail those together. So 4 hours later, and if you're keeping track, we're at 20 hours, it comes back to me for another 4-hour meeting, but now I got to bring other people in. And so now we're at 26 hours. And then I finally submit it. Hours later, that board deck is done and ready to be presented. I know this. This happens every time. Every CISO knows this. But it's not due until February 23. So if I don't do anything about that board deck, and I build it on February 23, it'll take me 4 hours to build it. It'll suffer an hour of review, maybe an hour of revision, and I'm 6 hours in on that board deck. Same result, 6 hours versus 26 hours. And so what we all do, every executive in this position, they manage the efficiency of their work and the value to their company with strategic procrastination.
So getting, and I want to tie this back to how busy a CISO should be. Frankenstein, I appreciate you trying to evaluate your own CISO at work, but what is that, how does that self-identification that it's more efficient to procrastinate weigh into how you manage your day-to-day time allocation as a CISO?
This is the why, Neil. If that CISO doesn't know their why, they will be frittered. They'll be all over the place. There'll be an undefragged hard drive. Go back to so if they know their why, then you know where you can procrastinate. So I know that I'm good at spontaneous presentations. I know my team is super solid. They can pull things together, they can get it ready, and we can adjust on the fly, and they won't hate me for it. They know it's coming. They're all prepped. We're good to go. So we're going to take the 3 weeks between now and when that deck is due, and we're going to bang out some of these things that are high priority items.
You're going to handle it at the low level and gather your data at the low level without showing your cards to the superordinate management.
That's right. So when I said strategic procrastination, it sounds bureaucratic or stupid, but it really is. I've learned this with such clarity that I never saw before, having started a company. There are things you have to say no to, and you say no to more things than you say yes to. And it's just a slight variation on what I had to do as a CISO. I'm not saying no, I'm saying soon or not quite yet.
So Pommy wants to follow up with that one, and I think it's a little bit more specific, and he wants to know, how do you successfully manage your time?
I don't know that I successfully manage my time. It doesn't feel like it. Every day there's a list of things that are undone.
You have a different perspective on this now that you're doing a startup versus when you were
I was going to say, it's probably in a different capacity.
That's fair. So number one, if I didn't have people that I could close my eyes and trust, I would have been dead as a CISO. It's my opinion, from talking to lots of people in my own experience, that a CISO's first 90 days, three quarters of those CISOs say, I think I've just ruined my life. I never should have taken this job.
Would you say that that's pretty, do CISOs have a self-awareness on the value and the importance of the staff that work for them?
Oh boy.
And I know I'm asking you to generalize across the entire CISO pop, but at least amongst the folks that you converse with.
Yeah, honestly, so I could name the ones that do. I could name them. I know them.
That sounds like there's a few that do and the rest don't. You could read that between the lines and say,
okay. So I don't mean to be evasive.
I don't think that was really between the lines. That was in headlines. Most don't.
Most don't, because I can name the three that do.
And I'm personally friends with all three.
And this is where Joel is going, shit.
That's so great. Well, actually, there's no downside, because CISOs are going, crap, I haven't shown my team I love them, and they will. Or, right, so either way.
Okay, that's good.
So CISOs are introverts. We suck at expressing affection. And we're in a role where my reputation and my earning power is on the line. So that makes you very insecure, tight, small, parsimonious, careful with how you deal with people. That's not how you build a relationship. So whether that CISO actually cares for people or whether they can express it in a way that works or connects, those are two different things. All of the CISOs that I know, I could rattle off a list of names of people who love their teams in ways that I failed to. We did a better job of it. Now, not all CISOs can say it. Not all CISOs can show it. Not all CISOs know that it's not the words you use, but the words that are received that make the difference. So if you think your CISO doesn't care or doesn't get it, give them that feedback. Like, we are not important people. We are the most at-risk person in the organization. And so if you come into my office and say, Joel, I've been here for 2 weeks and I don't know, I feel like you're kind of distant. And I thought this was going to be like a warmer place and I was going to feel part of the team. But as you know, I'm remote and I haven't been invited to anything and I just don't like this because I want to love the team and I want to give my all, but I feel like I'm on the outs. That would cause a reaction from me that would probably border on harassment from the HR point of view, because I would invite you to my family dinners and I would send you Christmas cards and I would want to rectify that situation. Other CISOs might not know how to do that. So you might have to teach your CISO how to do it. We're just people and not that good at our jobs because our jobs haven't been around that long. We're not respected by our peers typically because the CISO is not an accepted executive role. We're the newest, we're the baby executive. And so when you look at that CISO, if you can look at us, and it sounds stupid, with a little bit of, man, that poor sucker, look at all that he or she has to go through. I wonder if they need a friend. We are vulnerable. We don't look like it. We seem mean or harsh or short but it's not really what's going on inside.
So back to how do you manage your time now that you've kind of talked about how CISOs don't care about their team in that time management cycle. How do you personally, Joel, successfully manage your time?
So I'll be really specific. I know what I'm good at and I know what I'm weak at. I'm very good at vision. I'm good at the big picture. I'm good at strategy. I'm terrible at details. I don't enjoy it.
We're going to be awesome, but I can't tell you how we're going to be awesome.
Exactly.
But I can picture the end game. Yeah.
Right? So knowing that and knowing that it costs me twice as many experience points to do something detailed as it costs somebody else, I surround myself with people who are complements to me. They're my equals, but they're complementary. So how do I manage my time? Every Monday, I meet with the head of, at the time, my chief of staff, previously the head of projects, and we would meet and walk through, here's what's coming this week. And what I know that the chief of staff doesn't is I know color. I know strategic influence. I know, and what she knows is detail specifics. So, when they call football games, there's the color and there's the commentary. Mm-hmm. Somebody's talking about what high school he went to and the other person's talking about how many yards were gained. That is the perfect balance that you need. So we start the week with, hey, Joel, by the way, you promised to call this person back and this thing's doing, et cetera. And then I get that one doesn't matter as much. And we need to adjust our priorities here and we need to meet with these people. And that sets the week. But if I ever let that go, there's a rule. If you ever start a bar, never hire a bartender, do it yourself. Because the bartender will steal you blind. Never get away from the money. Mm-hmm. So in the same way, when you run the org, never let anyone else run your time.
That makes sense. So Secot T comes through and he sees Joel, between technical, strategic, and management job roles, how do you maintain your hands-on knowledge or skill set with tools? Do you still pay attention to vuln reports or do you just pay attention to the big ones?
Yeah, that's really good. So strategic is most important because strategic influences management and technical. Strategic doesn't have to take a lot of time. Most people don't grok strategy. They don't really even know what it is, and it will pay you in spades to learn what strategy is. My mission of strategy is it is the art and science of placing yourself in a position where you have more beneficial outcomes than you did before. That's it. So for me, strategy is, where am I now? Where can I move to that I have more better choices? Sorry for the grammar there. That helps me with management and technical, because if all of my team know we're moving to this position because it gains us these three options that we didn't have before, then they're all in, right? One mission, one team, one unit, we're good. And that way they have commander's intent. And that's the most important piece of management is, what do you do when your boss isn't there? And so we had commander's intent. 1 year at a particular role. The vision for that year was called getting our house in order. We called it Go-Hio. So when in doubt, do the basic, do the foundational, do the fundament. 1 year, the vision for that year, the bumper sticker was see more. No matter what you do, we want to see more. Even if you can't fix it, priority is to seeing the things that are out there. So that came from the strategy, and that lined out into management. The technical roles, like there's just no way. There's no way to keep up sufficiently. Do I know a little bit of Docker? Well, I didn't until I learned that we had product issues, and so I got to jump in and do it.
But well, let me poke at you a little bit on this, because I feel very much in that boat as well, right? I've been technical my entire life, and my fear as I move up the organization is the loss of that technical skills, which is why I do the stream, I do technical stuff on the stream, I do labs and things like that. How do you have that conversation with yourself? How do you, what is it that you have to do to yourself to be like, okay, I think we should do this, or maybe I should, maybe I should take my hands off of maybe the Splunk stuff, or maybe the BSD stuff, or, maybe the Docker stuff. What's the internal conversation that you have that says, I don't have the time to do this part anymore because I have to do this part of growing up?
Yeah, that's cool. So if you are new and you're looking at a role, probably what you're looking at is, I've got tech skills and I need to work on my soft skills. And you're asking the same question Neil just asked. I've got all these tech things that are the future of my career, and you're telling me I need soft skills. How do you make that decision? What to sacrifice from tech time to soft skill time? What happens when you move up the org chart is that flips. And now it's every day is soft skills writ large. We call it politics. How much time do I devote to tech? And where do I put it? So Neil, for me, it was situational. So Splunk is replatforming. They're going to be on a Docker-based infrastructure so that all the layers are disambiguated. Okay, I'm going to have to learn Docker. I got to get caught up. I got to know the basics of it. I got to know the architecture of the deployment, risks, and then I got to know enough that my team isn't embarrassed, but they're well led. So my sheepdog still works and my cow catcher still works.
Right.
There are still things I don't know about, and the reason I don't know about them is they weren't germane to the direction of the company or my team. So those I got to let go. Unless it's like OpenBSD, which I've been using for like 12 years and I love it. That's just a different thing. Yeah.
Awesome.
So when you were determining when you were going for the CISO role, and you were saying your number one that you mentioned was, I need to make sure I know why I'm going to the CISO role,
Yeah.
right? What is my purpose? Was there an equal and opposite pole of, I have to know why I wouldn't want to? Like, were you juxtaposing the pros and cons? Like, oh crap, I've got way more cons than I've got pros. Why do I want to do this again? Because I'm not seeing the equation.
No, that's a really smart question. So, Jeff, do you live in California?
No.
Right,
Chicago. I've got AT&T internet. Yeah, you couldn't tell? Yeah.
Wow.
So, in California, you're allowed to split lane share. That means on a motorcycle, you can ride between the cars.
I was going to say, that means you can ride between the cars and on the curb and everything else.
And it is awesome. I'm sorry, that probably didn't work. It is awesome.
I was going to say, you got to do that. It is awesome.
I have driven rental cars in California, and it scares the crap out of me.
Have you driven rental cars in between other cars in California?
Oh, wait, I thought that I was allowed to do that.
If you ever had a guy on...
Turns out the motorcyclists don't like when I do that. Who knew?
No, the rest of us like, hey, follow him. He'll make a lane. Yeah, if there was ever an Indian blasting Flight of the Valkyries past you that scared you, I apologize. That was me. The germane analogy here, though, is when you ride and split, you have to, the expression I use is, you have to look the holes. You can't look at the cars. You have to look at the only clear lane ahead of you. Because the moment you look at something else, motorcycles go where you look. Like if you go on a track day, they'll tell you when you go around the corner, don't look at the wall, don't look at the berm, don't look at the crash barriers. And people do. And what's startling is you watch them come around that corner and then they'll look and their bike will stand up and drive right into it. So you have to look where you want to be. You can't look where you want to avoid. And it's a mental switch, and it requires an amazing amount initially of discipline. And then eventually you realize you don't even notice the cars because all you can see is the clear lane. That's how it is when you decide, I want this. You're only looking at that light at the end of the tunnel. And all the other things that are possible distractors, you just don't have time. You just can't carry them. It's got to be all in or not in, for me.
That's a great answer and even a better analogy, by the way.
Absolutely, 100%. Real quick though, just for everybody who's listening in chat, we are coming to the top of the hour. If you do have questions for Joel, I'm gonna steal Joel and make him like stay with us for a little while longer, but not much longer. So make sure you do get your questions in. He still looks like he's got some bourbon in his glass right there, so we could probably get him to pour a little bit more and answer some more questions, but not for much. Yeah, so not for much longer. So let's make sure you get your questions in. Don't forget, we are going to announce the winner of the January giveaway tonight. So if you did participate in the Pew Pew Map giveaway, make sure you are present right now and for the next few, and we'll announce that. But coming in from Fasoshi again, Joel says, Fasoshi says, what was your greatest moment as a CISO and worst moment?
So the worst moment as a CISO is about day 65
of being in the CISO seat.
Yeah, you just got no idea. Everything. So the flip on this, the greatest moment is I had at Splunk one of the greatest bosses ever. I worked for the first time for the CFO, and that is extremely unusual. Like a less useful organization is where the security reports to IT. That tends to be less useful. More and more that's being inverted. So time will tell whether that's better or worse. But having secure and available as peers works very, very nicely. Subverting one to the other, less so. But I worked for a CFO and I thought, I don't know if I'm going to like this or not. So I sat down and, he starts telling me an analogy. I'm like, all right, I love analogies. This was one of my best moments as a CFO, as a CISO. He tells me, so I'm a golfer. I'm like, all right, so that's strike one. I have no idea what.
I might have just swallowed a little bit of that bourbon a little hard.
That was for you.
Shit.
Up the nose.
Oh,
and
shit,
I don't know,
that was bad.
When we first promoted our time together, you were the Joe Rogan of cybersecurity. You might not have noticed that half an hour before we kicked off, I reminded everybody that I was going to be on with the Joe Buck of cybersecurity.
I missed that. I
wanted to save it till the very end, so in case you had any comebacks, we'd have a short time to hurt me.
Yeah, okay.
So the CFO says, I'm a golfer, and I'm out there, and I'm putting on number 9, whatever it is, and the lay is wrong. The grass is fast, and so he says the groundskeeper's there, and I say to him, hey, this is ridiculous. This is not the way it was when I was playing yesterday. And he says, the groundskeeper says to me, hey, golf courses are living things. They're never the same. And I'm thinking to myself, I might have the wrong job. I'm not sure what's happening right now. And he says, so Joel, I just want you to know that's how I see security. So I know that you'll never be done. And I thought, for the first time in my life, he gets it. I'm working for somebody who gets it. He gets it. So that was one of the best moments as a CISO because I knew then I had a punch card to make mistakes. And so I turned around and I gave that card to my leadership team. And I said, all of you have a card with 2 punches on it. And those 2 punches are problems that reach the CEO that you didn't do on purpose. You'll not get in trouble. You've got 2 punches on that card. And you gave me freedom. I'm going to go pass that freedom on. And now I used to fight. And then I coached fighters when I got too old and achy to fight. And one of the things that you learn when you fight is the guys that are all jacked up, big muscles, they don't last very long. They gas. Because if you're loose, you fight really well. And what that guy gave me was the ability to fight relaxed. And so I could turn around and hand that to my team. And that team was amazing because they knew they could fight relaxed. That was the best moment, I think, as a CISO that I had.
Let me just, so not necessarily on the topic of best or worst moments as a CISO, but just because you brought up, CFO and one of the things that I think has come up on chat a couple times, and just something that I've personally contended with in my circles, right, is reporting relationships of the CISO. What is your thought on a CISO reporting to a CIO versus a COO versus a CFO versus a CEO? And the reason I say this because I have a stance on that I've been very vocal about on stream, but I've noticed that it's unfortunately crazy split.
Yeah. The one thing that I would not want to do is report to the CEO.
Okay.
And the reason that I would not wish to report to the CEO is the principle of economy is scarcity equals value. And so if that CEO and I meet once a quarter, that conversation is so valuable. If she and I are meeting once a week, I'm just another yapper, falls into the mix. So I scarcity equals value. So the chief operating officer kind of depends on their remit. The CFO, I have a bias against that. Like, their job is to control costs, and they do it as an example, right? So as a role model, they say, look at us, we cut money first.
Right.
I can't be there. The CIO is very difficult, right? There's the triad, right? We talked about things in three. There's three things we do: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Well, security, we do confidentiality and integrity. IT tends to do availability. If it's on, the lights are blinking, we're good to go, forget about it. And if that gets to dominate my strategy, I got to go. That's not going to work. There's my reputation. So this working for the CIO is very difficult if that is the mindset. So.
I think I've always had the stance, and I'll say this, and I want your response to this, in candid format. The CIO is hard because if the CIO is your boss and you go to the board and you tell the board that IT is screwing it up, you're basically ratting out your boss to the board. At least if you report directly to the CFO allows you the opportunity to make cost-based decisions based on risk acceptance. And so if you tell the CFO, we don't have to do MFA, but we might be a subject of a breach, and here's how much that breach will cost you. Do you accept that risk? You have the chief financial officer accepting the financial risk to that organization.
Yeah, that's so hard. Your logic is coherent. I can't explain that risk in numbers. That's where the CFO lives. So when we both go to the audit committee, typically the CFO is in the audit committee, and I'm dotted line to the audit committee, and the audit committee chair says to the CFO, tell me your assessment of cybersecurity. And that's, if that CFO just gets big eyes and blinks, we got trouble. So at that point, like, I know I've said this a couple times, but honestly, I think that it's true that it depends is a really large factor in the success politically. That CFO that I had, 100%, I'd work for him again.
Right.
Other CFOs I've worked with, I'd rather have them work for me when it comes to that audit committee conversation, because I know I can cover them. I could give them air cover. They can't give me air cover. So it depends there. So it's very hard for me to give a generic answer.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I got Carmen talking to me in one ear. Can you push the next question, Carmen? There we go. Awesome. Joel, in your opinion, what are the top 3 books? Oh God, go for, I know one of them because you recommended it to me the other day, but what are the top 3 books that you'd recommend?
So I'm a Christian. I would recommend the Bible as my number 1 book.
Yeah,
changed my life.
I think you just earned brownie points with Jeff over there.
Well done.
Number 2 on the list. Well, let me not rank 2 and 3. There's a book called The Founder's Dilemma, and that is the one that I recommended to you.
Yeah.
And you might think, whatever. I tell you, this book is a cold glass of water in the face. You want to start a business. And sometimes you need that, right? And so here's why I recommend it, even if you're not worried about a startup and all the whatever. The way that I have ran a security team is we are a small business. And if that company, if Splunk could outsource everything we do to somebody else and get the same results for better money, they should. So that means as a small business, we can't be ashamed, like a small business would not be ashamed, to tell Splunk, this is how great we're doing for you. This is what you're getting for your money. Here's some new features that we have. We need to market back to our customer. We need to sell to our customer. We need to understand our customers' needs. That approach, as a self-contained unit, we are a small business serving this company, changes the entire way that I ran that team and the way the team responded to things. Founder's Dilemma absolutely gives you a peek, a look into that. And then the third book I'd recommend is, this may be a little weird. I recommend that you go back and you read all the stuff that you've done over the last year, because you're keeping a journal and you're writing down what you're goofing up, what you're succeeding at, what your thoughts were at the time, what questions you were asking yourself. And every now and again, you randomly pick up a book from 5 years ago and you go back and page through it and think, wow, I was a knucklehead. Or you think, oh, what was I thinking?
Yeah. Awesome. What's I want to ask you, since you mentioned the starting your own business thing, and it's probably not a question that's going to come up, and it's a little off topic, but what was it like for you to decide to start your own business?
So I knew I wanted to do it. That is, start a business. So there's a couple of reasons why. The why, right? We're back to that. Mm-hmm. I have worked for some amazing companies.
Hold on, real quick, Joe. Before you do that, we just got a raid of 162 people from the Prime Mag, and thank you very, very much for the raid. Thank you all very, very much for coming in and tuning into the channel. For those who are coming in with the raid, welcome to the Cyber Insecurity stream. We have up here the legendary, the amazing, the one and only Joel Fulton. He's been Chief Information Security Officer at Splunk, Symantec, Google, Starbucks. I mean, he's been one of the lead cybersecurity folks for a lot of major organizations. We've been talking about all things cybersecurity related for tonight. Been just kind of generally sharing stories about cybersecurity, talking about mentorship, talking about his role in a cybersecurity organization. So I want to welcome, the 162 people that just came in from the raid. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you're interested in cybersecurity topics, this is a fantastic channel to get those cybersecurity topics. It's a treat. We've got kind of like a little panel thing going on here where we've got Jeff Goals, who's one of my oldest friends, who is an amazing resource from VMware Carbon Black, and then we've got Joel Fulton here, who has just got an amazing amount of experience. And so if you're coming in and you're interested in cybersecurity, we were about to go offline, but because we've just got a rate of 160 some odd people, we'd love to, if my guests are willing to stay on a little longer, continue to entertain you guys here. So if you've got questions for some amazing cybersecurity folks here, we'd love to hear those. So with that being said, back over to you, Joel, on that topic.
Refresh me where we were. I'm excited. 162.
I'm excited. There's 162 people that showed up. That's amazing. I'm so excited for that. I actually really forgot what the question was. Jeff, do you remember what it was?
No,
neither do I.
We had just finished talking about books, and then
I was
starting a new company. Starting a new company.
Yeah. What was your mindset in you had? I mean, look. As somebody who is coming up in cyber, I mean, being a CISO at Splunk, that would rank top-notch check boxes on my yes, 10 of 10 would love to be CISO of Splunk. So how did you go in that mindset from, okay, I'm done being the CISO of Splunk. I want to go start my own company now.
So I didn't leave Splunk. I went to start the company, and semantics there. But when I came, I knew I would go.
I know you told Splunk leadership you wanted to start your own company.
Yes. And so there's things I need to learn here. And I want to learn those things, and I'll be the CISO, and I'm all in, and then I'm out when the time is right. And so it was harmonious. They were great about the whole process. So why start a company? So there's a couple of things that I will use. Other people told me this, and I found them to be true. One of my friends told me, and he's been a CEO of a company for 7 years. He said, if you want to make money, stay at Splunk. Don't start a company. He was right. But there is the ability to create something, the ability to pour your heart into something and have it work. Show your baby to somebody and have them say it's not ugly. To be able to, like, all the things that you think I think to myself, if I were king, I'd do that well and better. Well, here's your shot. Let's see what you can do.
Put your money where your mouth is.
Right. Exactly. Hope you like it.
So I know I told you this, Neil, but the amazing thing about this, the thing I love the most, is every morning I wake up and I look at my list and I feel like an idiot. 50% of the things on the list I don't know how to do.
Like now in a startup, you're like,
right
you're clueless.
That's right. So how do you pick a healthcare plan? What about a 401k plan? How do you walk through another company procurement and their legal process? How do you find a law firm? How much do you pay yourself? Where should the office? Right, like all of these things. You wake up and you think, I got no clue. And then at the end of the day, you go to bed and you think to yourself, well, thank God nobody died. I think I did okay. I feel a little smarter. And you go to bed and you wake up and you look at the next day's list and you think, I'm dumb again. Like every day. And it is an amazing.
51% I don't know how to do.
Yeah, right. That's it. I miss the team that I worked with. I miss my friends and the people. And absolutely, I miss that. I didn't leave Splunk. I went to this. So
that's awesome.
And the reason
how many years?
That, oh, please.
How many years before you're moving to Splunk did you know you wanted to start your own company? And how many of the positions preceding stepping positions in order to get the pieces of the puzzle put together in order to start your own company?
So 2 of the positions were stepping stones. And then I knew what questions to ask to understand what that third stepping stone would be. So okay. I'll call it 6 or 7 years. But every year 7, I'm real vague. Year 6, I got a better picture. You're right. So that's how it.
Yep.
And just for clarity's sake, we talked a little bit at the beginning of the stream about imposter syndrome and insecurities and things like that, especially in the cybersecurity space. What was your insecurity mindset? What was your imposter syndrome mindset? Knowing you were going to Splunk just to get the experience that you needed to start your own company, and then you left that to go start your own company. What was your insecurity like? What was your imposter syndrome like as you were going forth to do that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So remember when we talked earlier about that imposter mindset, one of the things that helped me not wrestle with that was the recognition that I'm not the weird one. We're all weird.
Hey, speak for yourself there. Speak for yourself, okay?
Yeah, water's warm. Jump in.
That's right. That's right. We know why it's warm, Jeff.
Shots fired.
I got kids. That's
Shots fired.
So I did the same thing. I met with probably 100 founders and asked them, what's it like? What scares you? What are you good at? What's terrible? And everybody that's a founder will tell you, you say, hey, Joel, how's Lucid? I'm going, oh, it's great. It's amazing. That's like your instinctual.
I mean, right? That's like when people ask me, I'm like, it's sunny and 80 outside when there's like 24 inches of snow sitting in my backyard.
You don't open with, I have 50% of the things that I'm supposed to do today, but I don't know how to do. That is not in your response.
Occasionally I'll open with like, my shoes are tight. I think I'm retaining water. How are you? Yeah.
on that note.
So I learned from these folks. It amazes me. My preconceptions tend to be wrong. I would think, okay, I'm going to be a new CISO. I'm going to go meet with these CISOs and figure out what I need to know. They're probably a closed club. So I go and I timidly knock on the door and say, hey, I'm a deputy CISO and I've got an offer for a CISO. I'd like to learn about the first 90 days. Can you guys help me? All of a sudden, I'm like invited into their families and they tell me everything. And it blew my mind. Okay, but that's a rare thing. That'll never happen again. Now I'm going to go start a company. And I go meet with these founders. Hey, what's it like? And all of a sudden, I'm invited into their families and they tell me everything. And that's why when you were talking about mentoring, Neil, just ask. And I know that earlier somebody had suggested they seem too busy. And maybe I need to get over that. You do. Because it is amazing what people will do when you ask them sincerely with an end in mind. And I've never had that fail me.
Wow.
Like, no kidding. Today, I had a half an hour with somebody who has recently sold their company. They had a great exit. And this guy still took time for me. But when we first met, he said, oh, you're going to start a company? That's fantastic. Let's meet. I want to tell you everything I know.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, that sounds cool. When do you want to schedule it? I'll email you. And he goes, no, let's schedule it right now. What do you mean you're going to email me?
Wow.
And I was like, oh, right. I'm stuck in corporate mode. Okay.
Right.
So when
Right.
we spent 90 minutes together and I talked for maybe 5 minutes.
Wow.
Now you already know how rare that is.
I do. Yeah.
And he had it all and just downloaded to me because he cared. Why would he care? You find those people.
So I'm gonna move on to the next question here a little bit. That's awesome that you did that, and you're right. We do have a hard time shutting you up, which is a good thing. I totally get that. What would you today, if you had some freelance IT and small business management experience, but wanted to build up your business? I guess, what would you do today? What would you outside of Lucidum, outside of Splunk, like if you had to do a new idea today and you had, small business experience and a little bit of IT, what would you focus in on?
Oh, what would be the product or the service?
Yeah.
Yeah. So 2 ways to answer this. One is decide, again, your why. What is it you want out of this? It's pretty easy to run a lifestyle business. I'm going to run a business that pays for myself, covers my expenses, let me live a nice life, and goes on in perpetuity. If that's what you want, keep it services. If you're after something that you want to grow, hire, and make other people's lives better that would work for you, then figure out how to productize, turn that service into a product, and then figure out how to turn that product service into an actual product. There's really good roadmaps for people doing this. One of them is there's an email program called Superhuman. It's an overlay for Gmail on any iOS. And what Rahul, who's the CEO of that company, did is he built an email automation help desk script. And when you bought the software, you got a call with somebody who did a face-to-face with you, and they asked you, what do you want to have done? And then they did it for you manually in your email box. And the more people that wanted a certain feature, they built a script that did it. And that product was built on the repetition of a demanded service that then became a product that was a script that was an actual product you downloaded. So that path, people have done a lot. What would I target specifically if I was after something? I'm in love with the basics. We started this company. I won't make this an ad, but just to illustrate, we discover assets. That is a fundamental problem nobody has solved. What's going on in my cloud? What's in my enterprise? Nobody's solved it, so you don't have a denominator. I, Joel, would find something that is another foundational, fundamental thing. That's where I would aim if I was looking for
let me just poke a little bit. And I know that we could, and Jeff and I can get really, really deep on this. We've had this conversation before, but because you're coming into the cybersecurity market, you're bringing another product into the cybersecurity market. How do you contend with the oversaturation? How do you contend with Gartner? How do you contend with just some of the inflated BS that happens with bringing yet another cybersecurity vendor into the market space?
Yeah. So I described earlier, look for the holes. Don't measure yourself against other people. There's obviously some of that that's valuable, but not the focus. We have determined to be a blue collar software company. When you call your plumber in, they don't show you a PowerPoint. They just fix the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Our goal is to fix the problem and then disappear. We don't need to be important. We want to solve asset and then put it where you want, and then we go away. So we've tried to focus very basic on how we deploy, what we do, what we promise, and how we deliver. Because, so a little bit inside, I wanted this to be something that a CISO, when they took a job, they would say, well, so when you take your first job as a CISO, you always ask the same 3 questions. What are the assets? Give me a data flow map and give me an org chart. And you always get the same 3 answers. Assets.
We don't know.
Yeah, I don't. But a data flow map. You know, we had somebody. She left like 2 years ago, but she was working on it. Maybe that should be part of your 90-day.
I think it's 4 years old, but it's changed a little. Yeah,
right. And then the third, the org chart. Like, well, that's in Workday, and I mean, it's mostly right. Like, come on, really? That's what you're going to give me to start? You've tasked me to go to battle, and you're going to put me in a basement and blindfold me. So that's why we did this. But that's the way we wanted to do this. Just freaking work.
And again, I hate to interrupt you, and this is where I kick the ladder out, right? You know how Gartner is. You know that it's pay to play. You know that it's market share, right? I mean, I believe in Carbon Black, but Carbon Black will never be in the upper right quadrant because of Symantec and Microsoft and Trend Micro and all these BS companies that have market share over the awesomeness that Carbon Black does. How do you have that internal conversation that says, do you think you're going to be big, or are you just trying to make a splash somewhere?
Yeah, good question. We used Carbon Black at Symantec because we couldn't pull enough telemetry from SEP.
That is outstanding.
I know.
That
a little late.
That might come up. I'm just saying.
I did not know that, and that made me laugh out loud.
That is priceless.
That is priceless. I'm actually time stamping that one. That's actually pretty good.
So when you walk into a room, there's obviously somebody who's got command presence. There's somebody who's in charge.
Yeah.
So when you walk into the cybersecurity market, the person who's the alpha in the room is who Gartner said is the alpha. But Gartner's not the alpha themselves. Gartner looks around and tries to figure out, who do we name the alpha that makes us look like we know what we're talking about? So that is the way that we will approach Gartner and Forrester.
Did you have that opinion when you were a CISO? And how has that changed over the years?
No. Why would you spend $50,000 on a Gartner subscription?
But
a lot of people do.
I was gonna say CISOs
do.
And I've sat in conversations where it's like, Neil, why aren't you evaluating this company because they're in the upper right of Gartner?
I feel like you've just answered your own question.
Yeah. Hey Neil, maybe that is how you're supposed to answer it moving forward. I think you just answered it.
I love Avanta. Avanta is a terrific group. I know they were bought by Gartner, but I never bought a product off the quadrant. I would absolutely 100%. I talk to my other buddies and my friends that are CISOs and say, listen, we're rolling out a Docker native Splunk. What do you see in container security? And they say, we got Aqua and we got StackRox and we got Redlock that was purchased by Palo.
Yeah.
And we love StackRox. Right. So, I mean, that's how you do it. It's the real Gartner.
Right.
It ain't pay to play.
Right.
We know that people have had pain. Their reputation's on the line. They got skin in the game. That's valid.
Yeah. So I'm going to move on to questions because we could get into a total rabbit hole in this one for sure. And you can tell that this is quite personal with me. Reckless Prod comes back and says, has anyone ever really sat themselves aside to you and positively surprised you at work / on a project by doing something remarkable / really thinking outside the box? If so, if anything, did you take away from that?
Love that question. So I hope Reckless Prod is a person named Paul, because this story is about a person named Paul. And so I show up, I'm the new CISO. And what you do when you take this job, maybe when you take every job, but when you take a CISO, you spend your first 90 days using your eyes and your ears and your mouth proportionately. So you got 4 input channels and you got 1 output channel. Do less output, more input. So I pulled the team together and I said, and I do this everywhere, I got 3 questions for you. And I always introduce this on a Friday and it's due on Monday. So Friday morning, I got 3 questions that I need you to answer on Monday when we all come together at this offsite. The questions is, what do you do? Why does it matter? Who cares? And the teams respond a lot. I learn a lot from this. So the team's response was, do you have a template for that you want us to complete? I said, I don't have a template. Well, like, do you want it in PowerPoint? I don't care. You don't care. So like if we do it in Excel, is that okay? I don't care. I don't care. So I'm going to do mine in Word. Is that all right? And I said, I'm realizing, wow, this has been kind of an authoritarian environment. I said, listen, I don't care if you do a puppet show. What do you do? Why does it matter? Who cares? And I explained. All right, I wasn't.
I want to see a CISO presentation in puppet show format.
So we show up at the offsite, and Paul, whose wife at the time was a kindergarten teacher, she and he had spent the weekend making puppets.
Oh wow! Are you serious?
Blew my socks off. There was so much passion and he had acts. He had a 3-act play with puppets.
Did you make a buying decision off of puppets?
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. So there actually was a buying decision. So Paul,
the best part is Joel then did a presentation to the board of directors in puppet form.
Yeah. Actually, we did kabuki. I paid.
And he went to work for another company. I'm sorry, I'll be quiet now.
I mean, there's a couple CISOs that might be marionettes, but that was not.
I mean, I think we've all seen CISOs that are marionettes.
Maybe so. So, did I make a buying decision? Paul was a contract project manager for IT, and he had a little fraction of time for security, and he wanted to be a full-time security person. By the time I left that org, he was a senior in the red team.
Wow.
Nice. Wow. How can you not?
So you did make a buying decision.
Yeah.
And you bought him.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Wow, that's amazing.
Okay, what were the titles of his acts? Like, what were the 3 things? How did he just how did he break it apart? This is brilliant.
It was awesome. Yeah. Wait, I think I might be wrong. I think my favorite theater was not Kabuki, but No. It might have been No Theater. But anyway, he took popsicle sticks and he had little felt characters, and they changed clothing in the acts. Like there was a whole thing. It was intricate. It was heartwarming. And what I saw was, here's a guy that will run 45 miles an hour face first into a brick wall. He does not care. He doesn't care what people think. He's going to lead with his heart. Like, what can you not do with somebody?
He brought his wife into the conversation.
I'm still.
It's all about his. That's awesome.
Look, I'm still over here going, holy cow! How do I sit down with my people in a stage and see a marionette show with puppets and things like this? Be like, I don't know whether to be impressed or insulted that I have to be talked to with puppets.
I just want to know what the puppet of you would look like, Neil.
So think about
would it have the yellow glasses?
So Neil, you've talked about teaching and the importance of instruction, and I taught courses for a while.
Yeah.
And one of the amazing things about teaching is it's the best way to learn.
Absolutely. 100%.
So what I do when I watched Paul do this is he thoroughly understands what he does, why it matters, and who cares.
Yeah.
It was peerless.
Yeah.
He knows it inside and out, and now he can riff on it. So
Yeah.
so it wasn't just, oh, here's somebody like being vulnerable. It was directed passion to the point, and he understood I can build on that guy.
How much of that, I mean, if you think about your peers in the industry, right? And one of the things that I think you and I resonate very much around is you and I think similarly. We like the outside the box thinking, but I've met my share of CISOs who come from risk management, come from internal audit, come from the business side of things, who don't share our passion for the uniqueness of the personalities in cybersecurity.
Yeah.
Where is that line? How do you contend with a CISO that is born and bred in our industry versus somebody who comes from business or somebody who comes from not IT, not cyber, and you want to embed them into that mentality? Like how do you cope with that?
Well, so it's easier for me than for maybe most others in a cybersecurity org, because by virtue of a position, I've got authority or credibility to say things that other people can't.
Mm-hmm.
So you're asking me how I deal with it, and what I do is I drag my wife into it.
Poor lady.
In a very specific way. So she's been an emergency room nurse for 20 years. And so I will go visit her, right? I visit her in the ER. I did some of the ALS stuff. I've worked in the ED.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is when there's somebody dying and they've got the rib spreader and they're in doing heart massage,
Mm-hmm.
all of those people in the room are cracking jokes. They're all in it together. And no one is saying, I don't understand, Billy, why your PowerPoint interrupted mine. This is like, they're saving lives. But when you look in a corporate environment, we're kind of nasty to each other.
You damn right we are. I think, you can't understate that enough. We're fucking mean to each other.
So Chesterton, who's difficult to read but has some great quotes, one of his insights was, the reason bureaucrats are so nasty is because so little is at stake. So when it comes to how do we deal with each other in this corporate environment, one of the things, I share the story about my wife, and I share the story about my letting her eavesdrop on a conference call where people are sniping at each other. And then I tell my team and I tell others, if we were saving lives, we'd treat each other a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Seems like we could treat each other a lot better because we're not saving lives, and you fight better when you're relaxed.
Yeah.
But I've got the ability in a room to say that because I've got over time, whatever the position. So when you're not in that position and everybody above you is crushingly cynical or sharp or trying to keep you down. One place we worked, we laughed that it was like the Army. The first person to step forward to volunteer gets shot. And so everybody steps back if you volunteer. So you got to find your way around it. And so we had we'd find bands of similarly minded people and we'd say, we're going to outlast them.
Yeah.
Or we're going to clean this little part of our pool.
Yeah.
And right. So use that. You're absolutely not alone.
That's awesome. So Mace comes back. Mace likes your advice so much. He came out with a second one. He said, after all these years of experience, what is some advice you would tell your younger self?
Well, I know Jeff is your less good-looking older brother.
You totally pulled that from my last video.
You invited me because I'm your better-looking younger brother.
Right.
So
I was wondering where this is going, but okay.
That's right. That's right.
As long as Neil's not the best-looking one, I can live with it.
I don't need to be good-looking. I'm just here to corral all the craziness.
So listen more, talk less.
Yeah.
And that, like earlier, do you want to win or do you want to be right? If I had got that into myself earlier, it would have been I would have been more productive, built better relationships, gone faster.
Neil, how about you? Same question to you, Neil.
Well, no. See, here's the thing. Like, and so what's hard about running the show, right, is I hear things and I'm like, yep, I've been there, done that. And so when Joel talks about like, asking questions and sitting in a meeting and just listening, if you look at some of the roles that I've had, I'll spend, like Joel talks about, is 65 days. I'll spend 65 days listening and asking questions. I won't make I don't make a decision with the exception of roles where I come in and it's like, I need you to transform this organization in the next 45 days, which I've had before, which is vastly different. But if I have the time to assess, like for 60 days, like, no, I'm sitting in meetings.
Goes by quick too.
I'm sitting in meetings 8 to 10 to 12 hours a day listening. If I ask 1 or 2 questions a meeting, that's it, tops. But I'm just listening. I'm taking it all in. And so listening to Joel talk about that being a strategy, like that hits hard for me, because it very much is something that resonates with me, because it's like, and it was hard for me. It was hard for me coming up in the industry, right? Hard for me coming up in the industry in the sense of, the smartest guy in the room is the hardest position to be in. And Joel, feel free to weigh in on this however you want, right? Because you hear somebody say something and your instinctual cybersecurity reaction is, I want to jump in there, correct everything. I want to fix all the problems, and I want to get us moving in the right direction. But back to the politics, back to relationship development, you just can't do that. And so you have to spend 65 days listening, establishing relationships, figuring out how I applied for a CISO role one time. And when I talked to the recruiter, they said, Neil, I want you to understand something about the CISO role. You're not going to have 100 people reporting to you. You might have 5. And your role as a CISO is a role of influence, where you don't actually make any decisions. You don't actually get to drive the organization. You have to get buy-in. You have to drive the organization based on that influence. And that's where Joel's recommendations of like asking questions, sitting in meeting or listening, that's where that stuff pays dividends, because in a role of influence where you don't actually control anything in an organization, that's where you're going to make your biggest differences in an org. And Joel, I don't know if you want to comment on that or add anything to that or not.
I think it's interesting that the role that you're discussing is probably the first honest description of every CISO role that I've heard. You're not in charge of anything. Yeah. Your only power is influence, and calling it out right up front is kind of a glass of cold water in your face to say, oh, so that's my superpower, influence. I haven't worked on that.
I need a fourth mentor.
You do, because it's, I mean, I think your description of a CISO role is incredibly spot on. You're forced to accept risk for the entire organization, but at the same time, you're forced to accept accountability when your failure to mitigate that risk is actualized.
And your authority is real low.
Oh, yeah.
That's your mismatch.
100%.
Yep.
So we are 20 minutes away from 3 hours, and I appreciate both of you for staying on. I'm gonna hard cap this at the top of the hour. So you're gonna
hard cap this at 2 hours and 59 minutes because you swore.
I did.
Never.
I did. I did not know that this was gonna go this long, and so I appreciate both of you for sticking this long. So last minute questions, and then in about 10 minutes, I'm gonna talk about the winners of the pew pew map and things like that. And so we're gonna try to power through a couple of these questions without getting on too much of it. I do have to say, Joel, I ran a poll, and 100% of the 200 people in chat at the time that I ran the poll said you must be a regular guest on the Cyber Insecurity stream. So you and I are going to have a conversation about you making regular appearances on this stream. Apparently, there was a lot of people who said you must come back. So
did they also say Jeff shouldn't be here, or how did that play out?
That's been a repeating poll.
Yeah,
but I don't listen. Neil hasn't changed the login information in 4 years. So
proving he's a real security guy.
on that
turns
note,
out password 123 is easy to crack. Who knew?
On that note, California 909, who is so I have to say, California is one of the few subscribers who take, they take their subscriber perks very personally. For those who don't know, I hang out in Discord. I hang out in the subscriber chat regularly. If you want to hop in there and chat with me, I'm always there to give advice. California 909 is one of the few people who has jumped in there and gotten kind of those like quick rapid fire advice pieces from me. He comes to me, says, Cyber Insecurity as a vet, do you think people consider your leadership management experience if you weren't in the top 3? Running small teams doesn't seem to translate, and I want to see if it's a way that I put in there. I'm going to defer this question because we have Joel here. What's your thought on military vets? And when you look at military vets from a hiring perspective, what are things that you look for as a CISO or as a hiring manager when it comes to military veterans?
So I have hired a lot of military veterans. There is a way to bring them in, especially if they are just out. So honestly, probably the thing that would be most helpful is, since you recommended California, I'd be willing to interview you, California, and then I can answer your question, because I don't know if it's the way you put it out there or not, but I'd be able to if we did a mock interview. One of the difficulties people have leaving 3-letter agencies or the military is when you get into private, corporate America, everything flips on you. And now your power is not about controlling information or directing team. Now it's this weird ironically, California-like passive-aggressive influence. It's going to feel like that to you. It's going to feel wrong and weak and indirect. Maybe, I don't know you. But when I've interviewed folks who are transitioning directly from active or from 3-letter agencies, that has been a personal step out of the office, go for a walk conversation. I know these things are going to be hard for you because I've seen them hard for other people. How are you going to deal with this if it's hard for you?
And so with that being said, California or anybody else who's listening, I'm going to volunteer you, Joel, use that exclamation point guest, connect with Joel on LinkedIn and Twitter, and reach out to him. That's one of the values that comes from this stream is getting connections with folks like Joel. California, you've been very proactive. That's an awesome recommendation. 10 of 10 would recommend reaching out to Joel and having that conversation with him. So that's awesome.
Welcome that.
Yeah.
Welcome it. Yep.
Inside Sources, another one of our VIPs, and Inside Sources hopefully sticks around for a little while longer because he's going to be in for a surprise tonight. What's the most valuable lesson you held close and dear to your heart as you go through building your company?
Wow. I'm still pretty new at this. We've been at this a year.
So wait, hold on. You've been at this for a year and you still consider yourself new at this?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah. It's, I still, when I said I wake up and I'm an idiot, I meant this morning. So it still doesn't end. So you go from this flip, right? Your success in corporate America is your ability to control your passion. You can't be all out because people are going to stomp that. So you got to figure out, how do I manage the release of the things that I'm passionate about? When you start your own company, you can be passionate about everything. And that has a complementary problem. So learning that I don't matter as much as I thought I did, and handing things over to other team members and watching them knock things out of the park in a way that I couldn't imagine they would have done. I don't matter that much. That is the most valuable lesson that I've learned.
Wow. Is it humbling for you to realize how much you have to rely on your staff to be successful as a small company like you are?
Honestly, I wouldn't use humbling. I would say it's a relief. It's exhilarating. It's because I'm not the bottleneck. So
yeah,
knowing that I don't matter that much, is that humbling? I didn't have that high of an opinion of myself to begin with, but I get it now.
No, I actually disagree, because I think it's more confident, dependency on your staff, but it's confident dependency based on you knowing them and knowing what they're capable of.
Yeah. So
that's what I
like,
heard. That's what I heard you say.
Yeah. So even in the beginning, my co-founder, he and I have been friends for 8 years. He is another opposite. What he's amazing at, I'm terrible at. And we had an open discussion about, okay, at the beginning, I'm good at these things, he's good at these things. We're going to reach a point where that flips, and I need to take the captain's wheel off the boat, and I'm going to hand it over. And now you're going to be the captain for this next stretch. And it's a good nautical allegory. There's the ocean pilots, and then when they reach a harbor, that little boat comes out with the harbor master, who takes the boat in because they know the channel. And that handing things off, oh, we're in the straits, Jeff knows the straits, you take the reel, you tell me what to do. It's not really humbling, it's empowering. It's a relief. It's energizing for me.
But you've got greater confidence in the team as a result of knowing that when you hand it off, you know that you're in good hands.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. I mean, Neil, I just hear like the imposter syndrome. This is like the exact yin to that yang of confident dependency, because you have a realistic view of your own skill set at that point.
But I think what's different is a leader like Joel, and I'm speaking to you and I, Jeff, as if Joel wasn't here, right? You have a leader like Joel.
Good job.
I know, right? Who can acknowledge that his role as a leader requires him to defeat his team's imposter syndrome, even though he may not be natively aware of what his team's imposter syndrome is, but he knows that he needs, as a leader, to provide that feedback to his team. And I think that that's the difference when you look at a leader like Joel, versus maybe some of these other leaders that are out there. Joel is self-aware of his own imposter syndrome because when you listen to his history, his story, his GED, how he came through, his push for a PhD, right? That's his own defeation of his imposter syndrome. And so whether it's active or passive, he takes that and tries to pass that on to his team and say, how do I help you defeat your own imposter syndrome for working for me inside of my company?
Well, and I think what needs to be figured out then is, Joel, kind of a question back to you then, is what were the things that you went through that allowed for you to learn how to defeat your own imposter syndromes and gain confidence in a way that allowed for you to empower not just yourself, but your team to overcome their own imposter syndromes?
How much time we have left?
I'm trying to wrap this up in 10 minutes. Otherwise, we could literally be here all night.
Maybe this is the subject for the next stream. But I actually think it would be brilliant to show how you interview someone as well as answer this question. So maybe that is a perfect segue to the next stream with you joining.
Maybe it is. Let's go back to a question. We'll table that one as a topic. Maybe if we can convince Joel to come on next time. Is 30-year-old tech-savvy landscaper, right? So a landscaper who's done tech, wondering if it makes sense to offer security services to local businesses as a way to start out in the cybersecurity industry.
I did. 25-year-old woodworker, tech savvy, did start out offering security services to local businesses as a way to start out. Absolutely. 100%. So there's a couple of things. Bill flat rate, bill a project rate. Because if you do better work faster, then you make a better margin. Mm-hmm. Don't bill by the hour. Billing by the hour, you haven't set yourself up as being credible yet. It's very difficult for people to accept hourly billing for somebody that doesn't have a good reputation. But bill for a project unit. So for $2,500, I'm going to do X for you, or for $5,000, or et cetera. My suggestion, but absolutely figure this out. There is an enormous market for, I don't know how to use my phone, or we use Stripe for our convenience store and it isn't working back here, or I spent more time than I can count at ranches where the computers were clogged with airborne manure, and the reason that the backup on the zip drive wasn't working is because I had to blast out the kit. Like, do those things. You'll learn what matters. Like, tech isn't that important. The people are, and you'll learn that by doing this. So I would encourage you to consider doing that.
All right, so we're going to rapid fire this. I'm ask Carmen to smash up another question here. We're going to try to go rapid fire here in the next few minutes. Maze comes back again. I don't know if he answered it. Joel, what was the catalyst that launched you into cyber?
7-year-old Joel wants to be a private eye, has a long and lengthy past that all fails, ends up in cyber.
So Joel had a vision of a make-believe cyber operator, and that came to fruition. Real quick, we're gonna rapid fire the next 3 or 4 minutes with Joel, but I'm gonna cut it at the top of the hour. So if you want to get your questions in, get them in now. We're gonna smash through these. We're gonna try to keep them to yes or no's as quick as possible for Joel. Joel. When do you know when to cut your personal feelings about a problem and look at it from a business perspective? What's your 30-second answer on that?
People say it's not personal, that's just business. They're wrong. There's no such thing as business. Everything is personal.
Everything is personal, even in the business space.
That's right.
What's the next one, Carmen? Smash the next one. Last one right here. What is your best advice for dealing with others who like to play the game versus, basically politics? This one, you don't have the 30-second version of this. You got 3 minutes on this one. Go 3 minutes on this one.
So the game is, so let's acknowledge that. The question probably is, when you watch people playing the game, it makes your skin crawl. And you don't want to be good at playing that game, because the game that you see is gross, slick, off-putting. There's other versions of the game. There's versions of the game where you can help people, where you don't have to be a double dealer, where you can improve other people. Play that game, because the game isn't going to go away. Politics is simply relationships that people use to their advantage. So my suggestion is, be one of the people that corrupts the purpose of the game. It's nefarious, and makes the purpose of the game good for people, starting with you. And I don't mean that cynically.
No, and that's fair. And as somebody who has had to contend with that, what's your kind of, how do you advise somebody on how to play the game? Like, what's your conversation on that?
So the game involves a goal. So if we're dealing politically, I'm looking to establish dominance. I'm making sure that you don't get to make me look bad. I like those are all of the right. So much for that successful goal. Those are like, figure out what is that game, right? People are jockeying for position. Well, okay, they do that at Thanksgiving too. But what is it about this that you don't like? Maybe part of it is you. So I'm an introvert. There's a really good book called it's called Quiet, The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. And in that book, the author, she goes through, well, what do introverts gain their energy? What are they good at? Why is it fair that extroverts should have to tell introverts they need to be more like them? How do you deal with it when you're an introvert? I'm an introvert, but I've stolen tools from the extrovert's bag because I know I need to play the game. Because if I can play the game, I can take care of my team. So the question isn't whether I'm going to play the game, it's how. So when I'm dying, I'm not going to wish I'd played this game harder or ace somebody out of their role. So I need to play this game with integrity. So that's my choice. I don't have the choice whether to play the game. You are playing the game.
Let me poke at that just a tad bit in a few seconds that we have left. At the individual contributor tactical level, you're somewhat segregated from the game. How cognizant do you have to be of the game the further up that chain you go?
I think that by the time you're a manager, 51% of your role is the game. When you have people reporting to you, because you need to take the responsibility in that game to protect, lead, grow, shield your people, because they can't play the game. They need to get the work done.
Awesome advice. Awesome advice. Look, here's Joel, Jeff, both of you, from me to you, thank you so very much for staying over an extra 57 minutes. Joel, listen, you have been amazing. I want to turn the session over to you. Please give an outro, let people know final thoughts, talk directly to the 150 some odd people who are listening to this stream, the 2,000 people who are going to watch this VOD. What do you want to say to people right now?
So I guess a couple of things. One, recognize that we're not that different. People that have climbed up the ladder and people that are seeking to climb up the ladder are not that different. And so that means that what you see other people do, or what it seems like they've done, is within your reach, is capable. So part two of this is those people are willing to help you. They might seem busy, but as we've talked through here, there's some tips, there's some tools. Make that change. And the last bit is do it all yourself as much as you can. Never accept the, if only somebody else would have, then I could have been. People are willing and they're open, and you can climb this, and we're willing to help.
I think that's incredibly important. For those who are listening, hit the ! Guest, connect with Joel. You've heard his advice tonight. Reach out to him on LinkedIn, reach out to him on Twitter, make the connection with him. You can hit ! Old guy, because we've got Jeff here tonight, and you can get Jeff's connection details as well, because Jeff's a regular co-host. Listen, Joel, thank you so very much for not only coming on the stream, spending the extra hour talking with our team. It's obviously amazing that the team has got so many questions for you. Thank you so very much. I'm going to put, for up-to-the-minute cybersecurity news, make sure you follow and subscribe to the Cyber Insecurity channel on Twitch and YouTube. Also, make sure you turn on those notifications so that you know when we go live.